There is a short scene late in the Amazing World of Gumball where Penny Fitzgerald breaks out of her shell, and for the first time you see what she actually is. Not the peanut with the antlers, not the shy girl from the front row, but something fluid, every version of herself at once. Fire and feathers and faces shifting through each other, while Gumball just stands there trying to process it. The moment is gorgeous and a little terrifying, and the show treats it like a Tuesday. Once you notice that this cartoon keeps quietly doing this, keeps building entire human beings into characters who look like clip art and food and old computer sprites, you cannot really watch it the same way again. Tonight on Cortoon, we are going through all of it. Every Watterson, every classmate, every teacher, every neighbor, every background gag who turned out to be a person. So get comfortable, turn the lights down, we will be here a while, and if you have not subscribed yet, it really does help us keep making these. Start with the cat, because everyone starts with the cat. Gumball Christopher Watterson, 12 years old, blue, perpetually halfway through a sentence, the sort of character a lazier show would have used as a delivery mechanism for jokes and nothing else. The genius of Gumball, the design choice that turns him from a face on a lunchbox into a person, is that the show never lets his optimism off the hook. He is not optimistic because he is naive. He is optimistic because every other option terrifies him. You can almost feel the gears working underneath that grin. He throws himself into a scheme the moment he senses a difficult feeling coming, and the scheme is always too big and too loud and too elaborate, because the alternative is sitting with the thought for one more second. The show has been telling you this since the very first episodes, where every problem he encounters becomes an opportunity to perform competence he does not actually have. He is not lying when he says he can fix it. He genuinely believes he can fix it. It is just that the belief is the fix, and the world has to catch up. Look at the way the design grew with him. The earliest Gumball is more rounded, his eyes a little wider, his proportions more babyish. As the seasons move on, his face sharpens, his expressions go more extreme, his color palette gets a little colder. The animators were not just refining a model, they were aging a child whose voice actor kept hitting puberty. As far as fans have pieced together, several boys voiced Gumball over the run of the show, with Logan Grove, Jacob Hopkins, and Nicholas Cantu being the names most associated with the role, and additional performers stepping in for later episodes as the voice kept moving. Most cartoons would hide this. Gumball turned it into a character trait. The voice cracks, the timbre shifts, the cadence gets a little more sardonic in the later seasons, and the writing leans into it. By the back half of the run, Gumball talks like a kid who has noticed he is in a cartoon and has decided this is, on balance, fine. He is still 12, he just sounds like he has lived a few of those years harder than the rest. There is a reading of Gumball that the show keeps quietly pushing without ever stating outright. He is the only person in the family who actively manages the family. Anais is the smartest, Darwin is the kindest, Richard is the heart and the void at the center of it, and Nicole is the load-bearing wall, but Gumball is the one who reads the room. When a friend is melting down, he is the first to notice. When his parents are about to fight, he is the one who diverts them, almost always badly, almost always making it worse first. The show implies that all of his chaos is a form of caretaking that has not yet figured out how to be useful. Watch him barrel into another doomed plan, and watch what he was looking at 1 second before he started talking. There is almost always someone he is trying to rescue from a feeling. His friendship with Darwin is where this lands hardest. People talk about Gumball and Darwin like they are a comedy duo, the rubber and the glue. But the show has gone out of its way to make their bond into something closer to a marriage of two children. They finish each other's lines. They make each other worse. They make each other braver. When they fight, the show treats it as a small apocalypse, and when they make up, the camera lingers. The argument here is that Darwin is the part of Gumball that has not learned to be afraid yet, and Gumball is the part of Darwin that has learned exactly what to be afraid of. You can read every Gumball and Darwin episode as a conversation between innocence and the thing that grows up out of it, and the show keeps the conversation honest by letting both of them be wrong in turn. The other quiet thing the show does with Gumball is let him fail in ways he does not recover from. Not in the catastrophic, learn the lesson, hug it out way that most kid sitcoms use. In small ways. He humiliates Penny early on and the show remembers. He gets jealous of someone and the show remembers. He says something cruel about Darwin. There is a continuity to Gumball's emotional life that is rare in this format, where most 12-year-old characters reset to factory every Friday. Gumball drags his mistakes around with him, and you can see them weighing on his face in the later seasons, even when the joke on screen is supposedly weightless. The quiet brilliance of the character is that he is a comic protagonist who is actually growing up. He just does it in small increments between gags when the camera is looking somewhere else. Then there is Darwin. Darwin Watterson, formerly a goldfish, now legally a Watterson, with a comically long string of middle names the show has trotted out for laughs. An actor on the page who has somehow been given lines that would humble a much older performer and just delivers them. The premise of Darwin is one of the most casually surreal premises in any kid's cartoon ever made. The Wattersons had a pet fish. The pet fish was loved. The pet fish, in response to that love, grew legs and walked out of the bowl and asked to be adopted, and the family said yes. The show is so confident in this idea that it refuses to treat it as a punchline. Darwin is not a fish out of water joke. Darwin is the moral center of the family. He is the one who notices. He is the one who cries first. He is the one who tells the truth when no one else will. The character design tells you everything. Darwin is 2 dots and a smile on a circle. He should not be capable of holding the kind of emotional close-up the show keeps giving him. Look at his face when he is heartbroken. The way the animators rotate those dot eyes by a millimeter and let the corner of the mouth fall. It is the cheapest expression engine in the business, and it works because the writers built a person inside of it. Darwin's tragedy, if you can call it that, is that he loves wholly, and the world is not built for that kind of love. He falls in love hard. He falls into friendship hard. He grieves hard, even when the thing he is grieving is small. The show has used him as the canary in the coal mine for every emotional shift in the Watterson household. When Darwin starts to wobble, the family is in real trouble. His voice is a story of its own. By most accounts, 3 boys passed the role between them across the seasons, with Kwesi Boakye, Terrell Ransom Jr., and Doniel T. Hansley Jr., each leaving a fingerprint on the character. The Darwin of the earliest episodes is rounder, softer, more giggly. The Darwin of the middle seasons has a sharper edge of sadness running underneath the laughter, a small catch in the voice when he is trying not to cry. The Darwin of the final seasons is, in a way nobody talks about, the most adult character in the show. He has learned things. He has stopped trusting some things he used to trust. He has not lost his sweetness, but you can hear that the sweetness costs him now, and that he is choosing it on purpose. There are episodes in the later run where Darwin is the only person in the room actually behaving like a grown-up, and you only notice because the show refuses to point at it. What makes Darwin a piece of quiet brilliance rather than just a sweet sidekick is the way the writers used him to interrogate the show itself. There is a recurring thread where Darwin slowly figures out things about the family, about the town, about the universe of Elmore, and is quietly horrified by them. He is the one who clocks that something is wrong with the simulation, in the loose sense of that word. He is the one who tends to be the audience surrogate when the show wants to point out that life in Elmore is not, structurally, well. He absorbs that information without losing himself. He keeps loving the Wattersons even after he has noticed the cracks. The implication, never stated outright, is that this is what real love looks like in the show, not the easy version that does not know any better, but the version that has looked and has chosen anyway. Anais Watterson is the youngest and the smartest and the loneliest, and people miss this all the time because she is a pink rabbit with a teddy bear. She is 4 years old. She talks like a 40-year-old systems analyst. She has a tested intelligence that the show treats as both a superpower and a sort of soft curse. Anais sees the family the way an outside auditor would. She knows exactly how much money they do not have. She knows exactly which appliances are about to break. She knows exactly what her father is about to do before he does it, and she knows that telling him will not stop him. She lives inside the consequences of being correct in a household that does not want to hear correct things. Kyla Ray Kowalewski voiced her for the entire run, by most accounts. That continuity matters. Anais is the one constant note in a family of changing voices. Listen to her in the earliest episodes and the latest episodes, and you can hear the same actors stretching, growing, deepening. Anais ages slowly and inwardly. Her face does not change much. Her vocabulary does. By the late seasons, she is delivering monologues with the dry weariness of someone who has been right and ignored for too long, and the show finally starts handing her the spotlight. The episodes that focus on Anais directly tend to be the ones that ache. She is the only child in the family who has consciously decided to be small for the family's comfort. That choice is not free. The hidden genius of Anais is that she is a horror character buried in a sitcom. There are scenes where the show pulls back the curtain on what it is actually like to be the smart kid in a chaotic household, and the temperature in the room drops. She watches her family the way you might watch a storm from inside a glass house. She knows the glass is fragile. She knows she is in the storm too. She loves them anyway, ferociously, with the kind of love that does not soften the assessment. The bear she carries with her is not a comfort object. The show has made it clear that it is, in a way, a confidant, the only thing she trusts not to ask her to be smaller. You can read every Anais story as a small study in what we ask of our smartest children, and the show is patient enough to let her be both the joke and the thing the joke is hiding. The relationship between Anais and Gumball is one of the most surprisingly tender things in the series. They fight constantly, the way only siblings 4 and 12 can fight, with no proportion and a lot of teeth. But the show keeps coming back to the moments where it goes quiet between them, where Gumball, in spite of himself, sees her, where she, in spite of herself, lets him. There is a reading that suggests Anais is the one Watterson child whose intelligence Gumball has been chasing his whole life, and that everything he does, every loud failed plan, is partly an attempt to be impressive in front of a sister who can see straight through him. He does not pull it off, mostly, but she lets him try, and that is its own kind of love. Richard Watterson is the character the show is most frequently misread on. People watch the first few episodes and write him off as the standard cartoon dad, as overgrown child, the sitcom husband who eats too much and breaks things, and the show seems happy enough to let you think that for a while. Then it starts pulling threads. Richard, the show implies across years of episodes, is a man whose life peaked when he was a teenager and who has been actively, consciously, refusing to grow up ever since, because growing up frightens him on a level he does not have language for. He is not stupid. The show keeps showing you that he is not stupid. He understands at some level what he is doing. He just does not stop. There is a way to read Richard as the saddest character in the show. He is also the funniest, often, and that is on purpose. Dan Russell voiced him for the entire run, with a thick, low warmth that makes every dumb line land softer than it should. Russell plays Richard like a man who is trying very hard to enjoy what is in front of him, and that performance reframes the writing. Richard's failures of attention, his constant pivot from one shiny thing to the next, his refusal to be the adult in a moment that asks him to be the adult, look different once you accept that they are choices. He has chosen to be the child in the room because someone in the room has to be having fun, or none of them will know how. He is doing emotional labor. He is just doing it very badly, and the labor mostly lands on Nicole. The show has done several episodes that quietly excavate Richard's history. You meet his mother. You meet a version of him from before. You see him try, briefly, to take on adult responsibility, and you watch him almost break under the weight of it. The argument the show has been making, gently, over 6 seasons, is that Richard is what happens when a sensitive person gets handed a script that says he is supposed to be effortlessly competent, and decides instead to throw the script away. He is not winning, the family is not thriving on his choices, but the show refuses to despise him for it. It just lets him be exactly what he is, and lets the consequences sit where they fall. The kids love him, Nicole loves him, the town tolerates him. The viewer ends up loving him too, mostly because the show never asks you to. There is a hidden visual joke about Richard that runs the whole length of the series. He is the only Watterson who never seems to age, in any direction. Gumball gets sharper. Anais grows up slightly. Darwin gains scars and edges. Nicole is, by the back half of the show, visibly running on fumes. Richard is exactly the same shade of pink, exactly the same shape, exactly the same posture as he was in the first episode. It is a tiny piece of character design that does enormous work. The show is telling you, in line and color, that Richard has refused the passage of time. He is going to be this way forever, because changing would mean admitting that everything before changing was not quite right, and that admission is the thing he has organized his entire life around not making. Nicole Watterson is the spine of the family, and the show knows it and the family does not, mostly. And that contradiction is one of the great quiet jokes of the series. Teresa Gallagher voiced her for the whole run, and the performance is a study in restraint. Nicole is almost always 1/2 second away from screaming. You can hear it in the breath she takes before she replies to her husband. You can hear it in the long pause before she answers a question from her son. She is patient because she has chosen to be, not because the patience comes naturally. The show keeps poking at this distinction. When Nicole loses her patience, the world bends. Coworkers flee, strangers cry. Furniture sometimes catches fire, almost literally. The character has been carefully designed so that her rage looks elemental, because the show wants you to understand that what she is holding in, day to day, is genuinely too big for the body it is in. Her job in the family is not what it looks like from outside. The obvious read is that she is the breadwinner, the one with the rainbow factory job, the one who keeps the lights on. That is true. The hidden read, the thing the show keeps quietly insisting on, is that she is also the family's emotional accountant. She is the one who has done the maths on what Richard is and is not capable of, on what Gumball needs and will not ask for, on what Anais is carrying that no one else has noticed, on what Darwin needs to feel safe. She has reorganized her entire interior life around making those 4 people functional, and the cost of that work is visible in her face, in the way the animators draw the small lines around her eyes by the later seasons. She looks tired. She is tired. She does not get a holiday from being the one who knows. What the show does with Nicole that other shows would not is let her be wrong. She is the most competent person in her family by an enormous margin, and the writers still allow her to be petty, jealous, vain, controlling, occasionally cruel. There are stretches of episodes where Nicole is the antagonist of her own life, where the rigid expectations she puts on herself crash into the rigid expectations she puts on everyone else, and the family has to navigate her instead of the other way around. What is rare here is that the show treats this as a feature, not a flaw. Nicole has earned the right to be flawed by carrying everything else. The narrative is not interested in punishing her for being human. It is interested in letting her be human, in front of you, on screen, in ways the kids' cartoon format almost never permits a mother to be. Her relationship with Richard is the engine of the household and the most polarizing thing about the show for adults who watch it. Some viewers cannot get past the optics of a fierce, capable woman married to a man who needs to be reminded to wear pants. The show has heard you. There are episodes that take this question head-on, that ask Nicole, and ask the audience by proxy, why she chose him, why she stays. The answers the show offers are not the obvious ones. She did not settle. She chose. She chose the only person who has ever made her laugh without earning it first. She chose softness. She chose someone who was not going to demand that she be smaller, and she gambled that the rest of life would not demand that either, and the gamble has been mostly wrong and mostly worth it. The marriage is messy on screen because the writers are not lying about marriages. The careful trick is that the show lets the messiness be love, not its absence. The 4 kids, including Darwin, are an experiment in raising a family on threadbare resources, and Nicole knows that, and the show knows that she knows. There are moments throughout the run where she calibrates her behavior around what the kids can absorb. She lets things slide that she does not want to let slide. She holds the line on things that look trivial because she knows the family needs the line somewhere. She is, in a structural sense, the only person in the cast who is consistently doing politics, in the small, exhausting, household sense of that word. Watch her in any scene with all 4 other Wattersons, and you can see her tracking them, all of them, at once, like air traffic control. The cartoon is bright and loud and ridiculous, and underneath the cartoon is a woman doing the actual work, and you only really see it once you start looking for it. Move outward from the house and you walk into Elmore, which is not so much a town as a hostage situation that has been agreed to by all parties. Begin at the school, because almost every meaningful character orbits Elmore Junior High in one way or another, and begin with Penny Fitzgerald, because she is the heart of the show in a way the show is shy about admitting. Penny is the daughter of a peanut. She is initially drawn as a peanut with a pair of antlers and a sweet face, and for a long stretch of the early seasons the joke is that Gumball is hopelessly in love with her and cannot get out of his own way long enough to tell her. The show plays this for the standard junior high heartbreak comedy, and you could be forgiven for thinking that is all Penny is for. Then the shell breaks. The episode that does this is one of the most discussed in the entire run. Penny has been hiding inside the shell her father told her she had to wear, the shell that kept her safe, the shell that kept her small. When she finally cracks it open in front of Gumball, she becomes a shapeshifter, fluid, fluent in forms, capable of being whichever version of herself she needs to be at any moment. The metaphor is not subtle, and it does not need to be subtle. Penny has been carrying the cultural baggage of being told who she is allowed to be, and the show lets her step out of it in a single, gorgeous, terrifying sequence. From that episode forward, she is a fundamentally different character, and the show treats this not as a gimmick, but as a permanent change. She is freer. She is also more visible to herself and to the audience, and that visibility costs her. What the writers do with Penny after the shell is more interesting than the shell itself. She does not become an idealized girlfriend figure. She does not become a passive love interest. She gets ambitions, hesitations, fears, opinions, sometimes about Gumball, sometimes about the people around her, sometimes about herself. The show lets her struggle. It lets her be confused. It lets her be wrong in public, and lets her not apologize for it. The careful insistence is that the girl Gumball is in love with is a real and complicated person, not a placeholder for his feelings. That insistence is rare in cartoons aimed at this age group, and the show does it without ever making a meal of doing it. You only notice when you stop and ask yourself how unusual it is to see a love interest in a kid's show talk about her father, her ambitions, her body, her transformations, with this much specificity. Her family deepens her. Patrick Fitzgerald, her father, is one of the show's quiet masterstrokes of comedy and discomfort. He is overprotective, conservative, baffled by the modern world, terrified of his daughter's potential, and the show neither demonizes him nor lets him off the hook. He is allowed to be wrong and to grow. He is allowed to love his daughter badly and then learn to love her better. Penny's mother is the steady hand in their household, the parent who already knew what Penny was capable of and was waiting for the family to catch up. Together, they are a portrait of a household in which a child is becoming something her parents do not entirely understand, and the show treats that experience with seriousness and humor at the same time. Watch the family scenes back to back and you can see the writers working out, in real time, how a household survives a daughter who has decided to be larger than the rules. Tobias Wilson is a character that looks, on the surface, like a one-note bit. He is a small, neon, multicolored creature with a rainbow hair head, perpetually shirtless under a tracksuit jacket, walking around Elmore Junior High convinced that he is the coolest person in any room he enters. The clever thing about Tobias is not that he is cool, it is that the show is rigorous about the kind of confidence Tobias actually has. He is not posturing, he has wholeheartedly bought what the world has sold him about being a winner, and he is running on that fuel uncut, and the show finds something almost touching in his refusal to accept reality's contradictions. He thinks he is good at sports. He thinks he is attractive. He thinks he is funny. He is wrong, mostly, and he is happy. There is a small philosophical question hidden inside that performance, and the show keeps asking it. What if confidence really is a substance, separate from competence, and the world really does respond to it on its own terms? Tobias also functions as a quiet, structural counterweight to Gumball. Gumball is a kid running on anxiety dressed up as optimism. Tobias is a kid running on uncomplicated self-belief. They look like rivals, sometimes act like rivals, but the show keeps using Tobias to refract what Gumball is afraid of being. Where Gumball would slink away from a humiliation, Tobias treats it as proof that the universe is having a slow day. Where Gumball would overanalyze a moment of social risk, Tobias does not notice that the risk existed. The friendship between them is one of the show's running understated jokes about how two people can be in the same room and be having two completely different lives. The implication, never spoken, is that Gumball envies Tobias more than he admits, and Tobias likes Gumball more than he is allowed to say in front of his sisters. Carrie Krueger is the ghost. She is gray, hovering, deadpan, and she is the show's primary vehicle for grief, irony, and existential cool, often at the same time. She begins as a tertiary character, the spooky friend on the edge of the group photograph, and grows over the run of the show into one of its most fully realized teenagers. The writers treat her as a girl who has had to make peace with the fact that her own death is the first interesting thing about her, and who has decided not to let it be the only thing. She is romantic, sometimes hopeful, often sardonic. She is also one of the very few characters whose visual design is, structurally, a coping mechanism. She floats because her body is not present. She speaks slowly because the rhythm of a hurried world does not quite reach her. The longer you watch her, the more you suspect that her detachment is not cool at all. It is mourning, wearing a leather jacket. Her arc with Darwin, when the show eventually allows it, is one of the most carefully written romances in the run. They are an obvious mismatch and obviously perfect for each other in the way only cartoons can pull off. Darwin's wholesomeness gives Carrie permission to admit she wants things. Carrie's defended sadness gives Darwin permission to be quieter than the show usually allows him to be. They sit next to each other on a couch, and the entire emotional palette of the show changes for a second. The show does not push the romance too hard. It lets it be the small, slightly absurd, slightly tender thing it actually is. What is striking is that the cartoon is willing to commit to the idea that even a goldfish and a ghost can grow up enough to share a sentence about how the world is making them feel, and that the sentence will matter. Banana Joe is a banana. That is the joke, mostly. He is a yellow, slightly skinny, loud, performatively zany classmate of Gumballs, whose entire personality is built around the kind of energy that any teacher reading this will recognize. The class clown who does not know when to stop, who needs the laugh more than the laughers need the joke, who, if you look closely, is working very hard at all times to be perceived. There is, written into Banana Joe, a real loneliness that the show only occasionally pulls into the foreground. Episodes that put him at the center tend to suggest that the constant performance is what is holding him together, and that the moment he is not the funniest person in the room, he becomes alarmingly fragile. The show treats this with affection. He is loved. He just suspects, accurately or not, that the love is conditional on the show going on. So the show goes on. He keeps slipping on himself, almost literally, for an audience he is not always sure is still in the room. His parents are bananas. He has at least one banana sibling. The show has fun with the implications of being a family of literal fruit in a world that contains an entire food chain. Banana Joe is, more than most characters, used to suggest that Elmore is not safe, exactly, for people who are made of soft material. He has been peeled, he has been pulped, he has been threatened in ways the audience laughs at because the show is so confident in its tone, and then those threats start to add up in the back of your head. The deeper note is that he is one of the show's quiet meditations on how children who are visibly different navigate a world that wants to consume them, and he does it by being the loudest, most undeniable thing in the room, every single time. Tina Rex is the bully. She is a T-Rex. She is enormous, scaly, terrifying, and the show has slowly, carefully, revealed that she is also one of the most layered children in Elmore. The first thing you learn about Tina is that she is dangerous. The next thing you learn, which the show is patient about teaching, is that she is dangerous mostly because the world has been treating her as dangerous since the day she was born. She is large and reptilian and loud, and Elmore is a town in which large and reptilian things are not given the benefit of the doubt. By the time the show gets to its later seasons, Tina is allowed to be vulnerable on screen. She has friendships, she has interests. She has a father who is even more enormous and somehow even more frightening, and she has a complicated relationship with him that the show gives real weight to. The brilliance of Tina is that the show resists the redemption arc shortcut. She does not stop being scary. She does not become a quirky friend. She continues, in most episodes, to be the kid you do not want to upset, and the show treats this as a fact rather than a flaw. What it adds, season by season, is texture. You start to see why she is the way she is. You see, in glimpses, the cost of being too big for the world you were placed in. The implication is that there is a version of Tina's life that could have been gentler if Elmore had treated her gentler, and a version of Tina that is fierce no matter what, and the show is not sure which would be more honest. So it lets both be true. She is dangerous because she is a dinosaur, and because she has been hurt, and you are not asked to pick between those readings. Boebert is a robot. He is gray and boxy, and his voice is processed. He should be the easiest character in the cast to read, because robots in cartoons are usually one of two things. They are either threats or they are blank slates. Boebert is neither. The show treats him as a child who is genuinely trying to learn how to be a person and is bringing rigorous, logical, terrifying methods to that project. He scans his classmates. He runs experiments on his friendships. He tries to deduce what makes a hug and a joke a joke. He is, at his best, a stand-in for the autistic experience without the show ever having the bad taste to label him. He is also, at his worst, a small malfunctioning weapon, and the show is honest about the fact that the line between Boebert as friend and Boebert as threat is thinner than the other kids would like. There are episodes that follow Boebert home, and what you see is a household that is not equipped to raise a child whose interior life runs on syntax error logs. His parents try. They try hard. They love him, sometimes loudly, sometimes mechanically, and the show suggests that the love registers. In whatever way Boebert is built to register love, he is not unfeeling. He is just running on different firmware than the rest of the cast, and the show grants him the same emotional gravity it grants everyone else. You can read the entire Boebert thread as an argument that personhood does not require flesh or chemistry or breath. only enough patience from the people around you to let what is in there find its way out. Hector is the giant. He is a multicolored, wool-textured, kindly creature the size of a small mountain, and the show plays a long, careful game with him. The first time you see Hector, he is enormous and a little frightening. By the second or third time, he has resolved into a sweet, oversized child who lives with his mother and who has been told, in no uncertain terms, that he must never lose his temper, because if he does, the entire town will not survive it. The show treats this constraint with seriousness. Hector is not a threat that needs to be diffused. He is a child who has been asked to carry an unfair responsibility for his entire life, and the show keeps coming back to the question of what that does to him. You watch him try to be small in a world that fits him like a shoebox. You watch his mother try to manage a love that knows what her son could do if he stopped managing himself. The episode that lets that constraint break is one of the most striking visuals in the entire run, and the show does not pretend it is not also a tragedy. What lingers about Hector is that he is the show's clearest, gentlest argument about the way adults bind children with promises they did not ask to make. He is told to be good or the world ends. He internalizes that. He becomes good. The show does not reward him for it, particularly. It does not punish him either. It just sits with the fact that this is the deal his life has dealt him, and lets you decide how to feel about it. He is, frequently, the saddest character on screen even when nothing visibly sad is happening, and that is not an accident. Alan is a balloon. He is small, pale blue, drawn with the kind of serene smile that should look insufferable and somehow does not. The premise of Alan is that he is incapable of unkindness, and the show takes that premise seriously enough to interrogate it. Gumball has tried, several times, to crack Alan, to push him into an outburst, to prove that there is anger inside that buoyancy. Alan does not break, mostly. The show has had to ask itself, on screen, whether his saintliness is real or a defense, whether he is a balloon precisely because he is full of nothing more solid than air, whether his kindness costs him in ways he does not let anyone see. There are episodes that hint that the cost is real, that Alan's serenity is partly the only currency he has been given to spend on the world. The quiet brilliance is that the show is willing to make a character who is genuinely good, and to let his goodness be slightly uncanny, and to refuse to flatten him into either a saint or a hypocrite. Alan stays Alan, and the show keeps gently testing what that costs. Sussy is a chin, that is not a metaphor. Her entire body is, more or less, a chin, with a single eye and a horizontal mouth and a small frame that suggests she was drawn in a single doodle in a different show entirely. The lovely thing about Sussy is that she has been allowed, slowly, across the run of the series, to become deeply, unapologetically herself. She does not get smaller to fit Elmore. She does not lose her voice, which is bizarre, abrasive, occasionally beautiful. She has crushes. She has dreams. She has, in one of the most surprising emotional sequences in the show, a small, real romance with a character her own size and shape. Sussy does not perform her oddness. She just is odd, and the show treats that as a fact about her, not a punchline. Carmen is a cactus and Alan's girlfriend for much of the show, and the genius of putting Carmen and Alan in a relationship is that the show is openly playing with the question of whether two opposites can actually understand each other. A balloon and a cactus. The pairing is funny on the surface and tender underneath. They navigate the relationship by being deliberately, repeatedly considerate of each other's edges, and when they fight, the fights are about specifics, not about the obvious metaphor. Carmen is allowed to be more than her thorns. Alan is allowed to be more than his vulnerability. The implication is that any relationship between two people is exactly this negotiation, and that the show is willing to dramatize the negotiation rather than the cute idea behind it. Sarah G. Lato is the show's fan. She is a red and white ice cream cone with eager eyes and a vocabulary that runs about 3 years older than it should, and she is one of the show's sharpest pieces of self-aware writing. Sarah is a fan, of Gumball and Darwin in particular, in a way that the show frames as both flattering and slightly unsettling. She ships them. She writes about them. She has opinions about their dynamic that they themselves do not yet have. The cleverness is that the writers were clearly aware of their own fandom and chose to give that fandom a character, with affection, with humor, and with just enough teeth to be honest. Sarah is not a parody of fans. She is what happens when a character is given the same intensity of feeling about fictional people that fictional people are usually given about themselves, and the show treats her as a real, well-meaning, slightly intense child who happens to live inside the meta layer. Idaho is a potato. He is short, brown, lumpy, vaguely accented in a way that suggests the writers were having fun with the regional joke embedded in his name, and he speaks with the simple, steady warmth of a child raised entirely by farm life. The patient brilliance with Idaho is that the show refuses to mock him for his earnestness. He is allowed to be slow without being treated as stupid. He is allowed to be plain without being treated as boring. The implication, across episodes, is that Idaho has something to teach the cooler children around him about patience and stillness, and that they almost never get the lesson because they are too busy being themselves. He shows up, he stays soft, he answers questions honestly. He becomes, surprisingly, the kid you trust, with a secret, in a class full of kids who would never keep one. Anton is a piece of toast. He is small, brown, square, and has an entire ongoing existential subplot built around the fragility of being made of bread. There is a recurring joke in which Anton dies, in varying levels of grim, only to return the next episode as a fresh slice. The show plays the joke for laughs and then, on one or two occasions, lets the laughter curdle. Anton's existence is a strange one. He is reborn, but not quite the same. He has, by his own admission, memories of dying that nobody his age should have. The unsettling beauty of the writing is that the show is comfortable telling you, between gags, that Anton is functionally a small horror story, walking around in a school uniform. He still raises his hand in class. He still has crushes. He still tries to be a normal child, and there is something quietly heroic about the way he insists on it. Leslie is a flower. He is pink, polite, soft-spoken, sometimes mistaken by other characters for female, and the show plays with that misread without ever letting it become the joke at his expense. Leslie is comfortable as himself. The other children are sometimes uncomfortable about him, and the show is more interested in their discomfort than in his. He carries himself with a quiet dignity. He has interests, friends, opinions, a singing voice that has become a small running gag, and the show treats his identity with the same matter-of-factness it treats Banana Joe being a banana. He is who he is. The town will catch up or it will not, and the show is patient enough to let that be the case. Ocho is an 8-bit spider. His head and body are pixelated, drawn at a resolution that is conspicuously lower than the rest of the show, like a sprite from an earlier console wandered into a more sophisticated animation. The hidden genius of Ocho is in the medium of his existence. The show keeps suggesting that Ocho's experience of reality is fundamentally different from the experience of the higher resolution kids around him. He moves in steps. He loses his temper in steps. He fights in steps. He has a family, and they are all drawn at the same resolution, and they all carry themselves with the brittle pride of people who know they look outdated and have decided that the world will treat them with respect anyway. He is also one of the more openly intimidating classmates when he is angry, and the show has fun with the way a stylized, pixel character can be more frightening than a much larger, more detailed one when he wants to be. Clayton is a small ball of clay, and his entire joke is that he can become anything, and that he has chosen, with the limited freedom available to him, to use that gift to lie compulsively about his life. He has been to other planets. He has met famous people. He has lived several decades in different shapes. None of it is true, mostly. The show, in one of its more grown-up sequences, lets Clayton be confronted about his lies, and lets him give an answer that breaks your heart a little. What is moving is that the show treats compulsive lying as a kind of creative survival mechanism, the protective shape a child takes when he has decided that his real life is not interesting enough to deserve other people's attention. The lies are bad. The need underneath them is real. The show holds both at once, without rushing to a tidy resolution. Terry is a paper bear, drawn flat, two-dimensional, prone to dissolving in water and easily torn. What is elegant about Terry is that her physical fragility has been written into a full personality study about anxiety. Terry is the school's resident hypochondriac, terrified of germs, of injury, of any incursion against her thin paper body, and the show treats her terror not as a punchline but as a coping mechanism that almost works. She is a quietly intelligent child who has done the maths on her own existence and decided that the maths is alarming, and she has chosen vigilance as her response. The argument the show keeps making is that Terry is correct about how vulnerable she is, and that the question is not whether her fear is rational, but what life is left after fear has filled the center of the room. She still goes to school, she still has friends, she still wants the things any kid wants. She is just always aware of the weather forecast in a way none of her friends will ever be. Juke is a child whose head is a boombox. He cannot speak in words. He communicates entirely in beats and rhythms, and the show has built an entire body language around what those beats mean. The lovely thing about Juke is that he is one of the show's clearest demonstrations of the principle that personality survives even an extreme constraint on expression. You know what Juke is feeling in any given moment. You can read his moods, you can tell when he is excited, and when he is annoyed, and when he is in love, and when he is heartbroken. The animators and sound designers have built a vocabulary for him that the audience picks up on intuitively, and the implication is that all language is, essentially, this. We have decided that certain sounds mean certain things, and that decision is what holds us together. Juke just decided a different set of sounds, and the show insists you can follow him if you choose to listen. Jamie is a half-cow, half-girl character with an attitude that suggests her childhood was rough and is still ongoing. She is loud, mean, occasionally affectionate, and the show keeps revealing layers under her hostility. She has a complicated family. She has a complicated friendship with Tina Rex. She has a complicated relationship with the part of the school that finds her frightening. The careful trick is that the show refuses to make her either entirely intimidating or entirely sympathetic. She can be both inside the same episode, sometimes inside the same scene. She is a child whose first responses to the world are bluster and contempt, and the writers are honest about the fact that those responses are choices, learned somewhere, repeated until they feel like the only available answers. Masami is a small floating cloud, the daughter of a wealthy industrialist, and the show uses her to talk, with a light hand, about class. She is rich, in a town that is mostly not, and she carries that wealth with the kind of pinched performance that suggests she has been told her whole life that she is supposed to be special, and is starting to wonder whether the word means what she was told it meant. What is unusual is that the writers do not let her be a one-note rich kid. They give her loneliness. They give her self-consciousness. They give her, briefly, a chance to be a real friend to other children in the cast, and they let her sometimes fail at it because the habits her family has trained into her are not friendly habits. She is one of the show's quieter studies of the cost of growing up in a household that values pride more than warmth. Molly is a small green dinosaur, and the show treats her, mostly, as the quietest, sweetest, most overlooked person in the room. She is timid. She wants to be liked. She struggles to insert herself into the chaos of the more boisterous kids. The careful achievement with Molly is in how visible her invisibility is. The show keeps drawing your eye to the moments when Molly is just outside the frame, present but unaccounted for, included but not quite seen. There are episodes where her father, a much larger and more frightening dinosaur, becomes the focus, and the show uses those moments to put Molly's gentleness into sharper relief. She is patient in a town that has no time for patience. She is, in the way that small, undemanding children sometimes are, the kindest student in a class that did not know that kindness was even on the table. Rachel Wilson is Tobias's older sister and one of the early run's recurring characters. She is a teenage girl drawn with the high-contrast confidence of someone who knows that the world has decided she is worth looking at. And the show plays a careful, slightly melancholy game with her over its run. Rachel disappears for stretches. The implication, never spelled out directly, is that she has gone to college, or moved out, or otherwise grown beyond the boundaries of Elmore in a way the other characters cannot yet. What is quietly affecting is that her absence becomes part of her character. She is the older sister who has left, in the way real older siblings do leave, and her infrequent returns are colored by the fact that the world she left behind has kept going without her. There is one classmate who deserves a section of his own, because the show built him into something nobody could have predicted at the outset. Rob. He starts his life as a one-off background character, a four-eyed shape with no name and no particular function, briefly used and then forgotten by the show entirely. The show then notices itself forgetting him. It builds an entire arc out of the noticing. Rob, abandoned in the void where the show puts characters it has finished with, claws his way back into the main reality with a grudge against Gumball that is at first specific and over time grows almost cosmic. He becomes the closest thing the Amazing World of Gumball has to a sustained antagonist, and his vendetta is, when you trace it back, entirely justified. Gumball ignored him. Gumball forgot him. Gumball, as the protagonist of a cartoon, was complicit in his erasure. The metafictional honesty here is that the show is willing to take the worst implication of its own format and personify it. Every cartoon has the characters it forgets. Every show has the background figures who never get a name. The Amazing World of Gumball wrote one of those forgotten figures a soul and a memory and a will, and let him come back for the people who let him slip. The Rob storyline is, in its way, one of the most metatextually honest things any kids show has done. The villain is not a stranger. The villain is the consequence of inattention, the thing you ignored coming back for an answer. Watch his appearances back to back and you can see the show building a quiet thesis about responsibility. You do not get to pretend that the people you stopped noticing did not exist. They did. They do. They have opinions about you. Now turn to the adults at Elmore Junior High, because the school itself has a personality, and almost all of it is filtered through the staff. Miss Lucy Simeon is Gumball's homeroom teacher and the show's most enduring antagonist in the day-to-day sense. She is a baboon, drawn in a way that emphasizes every line on her face, with a voice that sounds like she has been smoking the same cigarette since the Pleistocene. The show, with a straight face, has established that Miss Simeon is hundreds of thousands of years old. She is, in the world of the show, an actual remnant of human prehistory, somehow now drawing a paycheck from the public school system. The joke is presented with enough seriousness that you have to take it on its terms. There is a creature in this school who has been alive since before language, and we have given her a class of children to torment. The grim brilliance of Miss Simeon is that the show treats her cruelty as something that she has earned the right to enjoy. She is not a misunderstood antagonist. She likes being mean. She likes watching Gumball squirm. She likes the small, specific pleasures of being the worst adult in the room. The show is honest about this and asks you to accept it, and the honesty is what makes her funny. There is no redemption arc for Miss Simeon because she does not want one. The closest the show comes to softening her is in her relationship with Principal Brown, which is a romance played for laughs because of the visual mismatch, and which the show occasionally allows to be genuinely sweet. She has chosen, somehow, to love someone, and the someone has chosen to love her back, and you are not asked to make sense of it. The show simply confirms that even the worst people you have known have someone who calls them at night. Principal Brown is a small brown bear of indeterminate species, with a perpetually mournful face and a voice that suggests his life has been more interesting and more disappointing than his current job would suggest. He is the principal of Elmore Junior High by default, in the way many people end up running institutions. He did not particularly want the position. He is not particularly good at it. He is, however, decent in his way, and the show keeps revealing small flashes of competence underneath the depression. He has loved, he has lost, he has had a life. What is quietly impressive about Principal Brown is that he is a portrait of middle age in a kids' show, drawn with surprising honesty. He is tired. He is lonely, mostly. He has fallen for the cruelest woman in the building. He goes to work anyway, every day, and tries to keep the place from burning down around him. Mr. Steve Small is the school counselor, a small green man with a beard and a hippie wardrobe, and a near-religious faith in his own methods. He gives life advice. He gives meditative exercises. He gives the children of Elmore Junior High the kind of pseudo-spiritual guidance that any school counselor with too few resources and too much paperwork will recognize. What makes Mr. Small work is that the show grants him his sincerity. He genuinely believes in what he is doing. He genuinely thinks he is helping. The fact that his methods are absurd and frequently counterproductive does not, in the show's view, make him a fraud. It makes him a believer in something that does not quite work, which is a different and more interesting kind of character. Mr. Small also functions as the show's secret cipher for a certain kind of bohemian Californian adulthood that the writers seem to find both ridiculous and lovable. He is allergic to almost everything. He has had several wild and inadvisable life experiences before settling into this job. He has, by implication, lived a much larger life than he is letting on, and is now compressing all of that experience into a small office in a school where almost nobody asks him for the real story. Watch the episodes that put him at the center, and you can see the show using him to talk, sideways, about what it means to settle for less than you imagined for yourself, and to do it with grace. The coach is a whistle on legs, a piece of physical comedy taken to a sharp visual conclusion. She has a personality that runs almost entirely on contempt for inactivity, and the show has fun with the contrast between her ferocity and her tiny body. The pleasure of Coach is in how unapologetically aggressive she is allowed to be. She is not softened, she is not given a moral. She shows up, she yells, she shapes children into reluctant athletes, she leaves. There is a clean confidence to the character that the show seems to enjoy, and there is a small implied romance with one of the other teachers that is treated as an unremarkable fact of adult life. The kids do not get to know the details. The adults have their own lives. The show keeps quietly insisting on that boundary. Rocky Robinson is the bus driver, janitor, lunch lady, and general-purpose adult employee of the school, depending on which scene needs an authority figure. He is a thin, lanky, vaguely groovy older guy who has somehow ended up doing every available job at Elmore Junior High and seems content with the arrangement. The show treats him as the school's secret heart. He is not in charge of anything, officially. He is in charge of everything, unofficially. The kids talk to him in ways they do not talk to the named adults. He knows things. He has watched. He is the closest thing the school has to a guardian angel, in the loose sense, and the show suggests, gently, that any institution worth attending has one of these people somewhere in it, and that you have to learn to recognize them. Larry Needlemeyer is one of the show's most quietly heartbreaking running gags. He is a small gray rock, and he works almost every customer-facing job in Elmore. He is the cashier at the supermarket. He is the clerk at the bank. He is the worker at the fast food counter. He is the technician on the phone. The joke is that Elmore appears to be a one-rock town, that the entire service economy is balanced on this single overworked man. What gives the gag its weight is that the show keeps letting Larry be tired, in a way other cartoons do not let their background characters be tired. He breaks, he cries, he has stress dreams. He has, in one of the show's most pointed episodes, a small but visible breakdown about how much the town demands of him. The episode is funny. It is also a small, sincere thesis about service work and the way certain people end up holding up entire local economies on the basis of nothing but their willingness to keep showing up. The Wattersons' next-door neighbors are the Robinsons, and the Robinsons are one of the show's most patient pieces of long-form characterization. Mr. Gaylord Robinson is a small puppet-shaped creature in a bow tie, drawn with the slightly stiff quality of an old children's television character, and the show has gone out of its way to confirm that this is exactly what he is. The implication, never quite spelled out, is that Mr. Robinson is a washed-up entertainer whose own children's show ended years ago, who used to be famous, who has retired into bitterness in the suburb next to the Wattersons because the world stopped paying attention to him. He hates Gumball, he hates Darwin, he hates noise, he hates joy, mostly, in the abstract, and he hates it most when it is happening on his lawn. The careful trick with Mr. Robinson is that the show keeps almost letting him soften and then pulling him back. He gets episodes that suggest he could become a kinder neighbor. He gets episodes that suggest he could become a friend. He undoes that progress, every time, almost without fail, in a way that is funny but also, if you let yourself notice, a little sad. He is a man who has decided to be small. He is a man who is too tired to do the work of being big, and the show neither punishes him for that nor lets him pretend it is anyone else's fault. He is who he is, and the joke is that the Wattersons keep treating him like an estranged uncle, even though he is the worst neighbor anyone has ever had. Mrs. Margaret Robinson is the other half of that household, and the show has used her, repeatedly, to suggest that some marriages survive on the basis of nothing but proximity and habit. She is not unkind. She is not warm either. She is a woman who has built a life around a man who does not particularly notice her, and who has channeled the slack into small, eccentric private interests that her husband would find ridiculous if he ever paid attention to them. The quiet beauty here is in those interests. The show keeps showing you, in tiny background details, that she has a rich, secret inner life. She has hobbies. She has friends. She has, for a brief and astonishing few episodes, a hint of an emotional life that runs entirely outside the orbit of her husband. The show treats this with respect and does not push it. She is allowed her privacy, even from the audience. Their son Rocky lives with them, and the joke that runs underneath the Robinson household is that this aging hippie everyman is the same person as the school's beloved Rocky, and that his parents have never quite forgiven him for not becoming what they wanted him to be. There is a generational drama playing out in that house that the show treats with a light touch. The parents are old-fashioned. The son is exactly what their generation feared. They love him, mostly. They do not understand him, mostly. The show lets the gap between them be the comedy, and lets the love be the subtext. and the household ends up being one of the most quietly recognizable family situations in the entire run. Beyond the immediate neighbors, the Wattersons have a wider family that the show has slowly unpacked over its seasons. Granny Jojo is Richard's mother, a pink rabbit drawn with thicker features and a sharper edge than her son, and she is a fascinating piece of character writing. The show treats her as a woman who has built her identity around motherhood in a way that has long outlived its usefulness and has curdled into a kind of needy, controlling affection. She is loud, she is intrusive, she is, at her worst, the engine of a small civil war inside Nicole, who has spent decades trying to be a good daughter-in-law to a woman who does not believe such a thing exists. What gives her depth is that the show is willing to let her be honestly unpleasant in the ways that grandmothers in real families can be honestly unpleasant. Without making her a cartoon villain, she loves her son, she loves her grandchildren. She has decided that loving them looks like running their lives, and the people in her path have to find ways to survive that love. Louis is her partner, an enormous, bald, muscular man who arrived in the show as a kind of late-life romance for Granny Jojo, and who turned out to be a much more grounded, decent, surprisingly perceptive figure than his appearance suggests. The lovely thing about Louis is that he is one of the few characters in the entire show who is allowed to be calm. He listens. He does not pick fights. He is patient with Granny Jojo in a way her own son does not have the bandwidth to be. The show makes the small but pointed argument that sometimes the best thing for a difficult family member is the arrival of someone from outside the family who has no history with anyone and no axes to grind. Louis is that person, and the show treats his quiet competence with a kind of awe. Frankie is Richard's father, and his arrival in the show is one of the rougher emotional moments in the entire run. The character is set up as a long, absent paternal figure, the man who left Granny Jojo and her son and never came back, and the show treats his return with the complicated emotional weather that any such return would actually have. Richard, when he meets his father again, is not given a clean reconciliation. He is given a difficult set of choices about who he wants to be in the wake of finding the man he has spent his life imagining. What is brave about Frankie is that the show refuses to use him as a redemption arc. He is a man with a long history of failing the people who depended on him. He is, on screen, charming and warm in the ways that long-absent fathers in real life often are. The show lets you feel the pull of that charm and lets you watch Richard work out whether the charm is enough. The answers are not tidy. The show, again, declines to tidy them. Nicole's parents, as far as the show has shown them, carry the implication of a stricter, more conservative side of Nicole's upbringing. Their part in the story has not been explored as deeply as some other relatives, but the strokes that are there are clean. They are rigid. They are judgmental. They are, the show suggests, a large part of why Nicole became the person she is, the one who carries everything. There is a small repressed dignity in them that the show treats with respect, even as it pokes at their limitations, and you can read their presence as a quiet explanation for the way Nicole moves through her own life. The Fitzgerald household has been touched on already, but Penny's father Patrick deserves a closer look in this context because his arc across the show is one of the longest. He is a peanut, like his daughter once was. He is gruff. He is protective. He is, in the early run of the show, almost the comic shorthand for the disapproving father-in-law you might fear meeting. The show then lets him develop. He is allowed to see his daughter as she actually is, even when seeing her means looking at things he was raised to deny. He is allowed to love her better. He is allowed to be wrong on screen and to come back and try again. The patience of the writing is that the show treats him with the kind of slow patience that is rare in his archetype, and lets him become a real father by inches over the course of years of episodes. Penny's mother is one of the steadiest adults in the entire show. She is calm where her husband is loud. She is open where he is closed. She has, the show suggests, been waiting for him to catch up to her on the question of their daughter for a long time, and she navigates that waiting with grace. There is a portrait of a marriage in the Fitzgerald household that the show is careful with. It is not perfect. It is not falling apart. It is two people who chose each other a long time ago and who are now, together, raising a child who is becoming something neither of them quite predicted, and who are doing it without the benefit of clear instructions. Sal Left Thumb is a recurring antagonist who is, technically, a severed thumb wearing a hood and brandishing a small weapon. He is a criminal, the show suggests, of long standing. He has been to prison. He keeps not staying in prison. He robs the same locations repeatedly with the same low-level menace, and the show uses him as a recurring background presence the way other shows use a mailman or a friendly barista. What makes Sal Left Thumb sing is that the writers commit fully to the bit. He is treated as a real threat. He is also treated as a person, with motivations and bad days and a slowly evolving relationship with the citizens he keeps trying to rob. By his later appearances, he is almost a member of the town, in the loose sense, the way a long-running petty criminal in a small town will eventually become the town's problem in a familiar, almost affectionate way. The Donut Sheriff is the closest thing Elmore has to law enforcement, an actual donut with a mustache and a badge and a perpetually exasperated demeanor. He is, by design, ridiculous. He is also, in the way the show keeps playing him, the closest thing the town has to an honest cop. He does the paperwork. He chases the criminals. He is consistently outmaneuvered by both his enemies and his colleagues. What lifts him is how the show uses him as a small running commentary on policing in a town like Elmore. The job is impossible. The man is decent. The system does not particularly care whether he succeeds or fails, and he does it anyway, mostly, because it is what he has decided to do. The Senna citizens, who appear here and there as a kind of low-key village of elderly characters, are some of the most underrated comic creations in the show. They are a recurring group of older townspeople, drawn with the deliberate hyperbole of crepe-thin skin and gravity-defeated bodies, and the writers have given them an entire micro-sitcom of their own, where their plots wind in and out of the main Watterson stories at unexpected moments. The Senna citizens work because the show is willing to let old people in a kid's cartoon be lustful, petty, romantically complicated, occasionally heroic, and entirely unconcerned with what the children in the town think of them. They are autonomous. They have lives. They are not a wallpaper of gray hair waiting to dispense wisdom. They are people, the same as everyone else. The school bus driver, by most accounts a recurring background presence rather than a named centerpiece, is a portrait of a man who has driven the same route every day for an obscene number of years, who has formed strong opinions about every house and every passenger he ferries, and who has had every fragment of his interior life broadcast on screen for 1 or 2 episodes at a time. The quiet completeness of the character is in how full he feels despite his minor role. The show gives him a wife, by implication. It gives him a backstory. It gives him a complicated, slightly bitter, slightly sweet attitude towards Gumball and Darwin specifically. He is, like Larry and like Rocky, one of the supporting figures the show insists on respecting as a full human being even though the format does not, in theory, require it. There are characters in the Amazing World of Gumball who appear once and never again, and the show is famous for treating them as if they had been there the whole time. The dinosaur with the perfectly round head, the pair of glasses without a person inside them, the motivational poster who turned out to have a personality, the cardboard cutout of a businessman who, on closer inspection, was actually present in the room. Every one of these characters has been animated with a care that exceeds what their screen time demands. The implication, which the show keeps quietly making, is that Elmore is a town in which everyone who can be a character will be one, eventually. The bit parts have not been kept simple. They have just been kept off camera, until the moment the script lets them speak. 2 characters worth pulling out by name are Hot Dog Guy and Mr. Cuddles. Hot Dog Guy is a hot dog. He has a small, recurring grudge against Gumball that the show plays as a slow-building bit, escalating from episode to episode in a way that mirrors, on a much smaller scale, the Rob arc. Hot Dog Guy has felt slighted. Hot Dog Guy is keeping track. The show is happy to let his resentment build over years of background appearances until eventually he is allowed his moment, and the show treats it with the seriousness of a much larger antagonist. The cleverness is in the patience. Most cartoons would never let a hot dog hold a grudge for that long. The Amazing World of Gumball is happy to. Mr. Cuddles is Anais's beloved stuffed bunny, and the show eventually reveals that Mr. Cuddles is, by some measure, alive. He has thoughts. He has loyalties. He has, in at least one episode, a piece of internal monologue that suggests he experiences the world in a way Anais will probably never know about. What is striking is that the show is willing to do, in one quick episode, what other shows would build entire seasons around. The toy is sentient. The toy has been watching. The toy has feelings about the family that owns it. The show drops this idea, lets it land, and moves on, because that is the kind of show it is. The unsettling implication is left for you to carry. Move outward again, Elmore itself is, more and more obviously as the run goes on, a character. The show keeps showing you the same streets, the same houses, the same diner and supermarket and bowling alley, and it keeps inventing reasons for those locations to be slightly different each time you visit them. The bowling alley has a haunted lane. The supermarket has a back room you should never go in. The diner has a waitress with a history you do not have time to fully unpack. The town is alive, in the loose sense of the word, in that everyone in it has agreed to behave as if it has always been this way, and as if it will always be this way. The agreement is what makes it work. What makes Elmore feel so specific is that it is drawn, very deliberately, against real photographs. The backgrounds in the Amazing World of Gumball are not painted backdrops. They are photographs of real streets, real homes, real strip malls, treated with filters and softened just enough to let the cartoon characters live on top of them. The choice is not just aesthetic, it is thematic. It tells you, with every shot, that the world the children of Elmore live in is the world you live in. Their suburbs are your suburbs. Their school is your school. The strangeness in front of the camera is sitting on top of a reality you recognize, and that is part of why the show's stranger moments hit as hard as they do. They are not happening in a made-up place. They are happening down the road. The void is a part of Elmore the show keeps coming back to, and it deserves a careful look because it is one of the most quietly horrifying ideas in any cartoon aimed at this audience. The void is the place where mistakes go, errors of animation, characters that did not work out, forgotten background figures, things the show created and then realized it did not need. The implication is that Elmore is a town with a built-in dustbin where its discarded population is sent to be unmade, and that the dustbin is run by someone, and that the people inside it know they are inside it. The show plays with the idea for laughs at first. Then it lets the implications bite. Rob comes out of the void with a memory and a grudge. Other characters come out of the void with their own grievances. The show suggests, without quite confirming, that the void is full of the show's own off-screen casualties, and that those casualties have things to say about how they were handled. The genuine novelty of the void is that it is not, strictly, a fictional element. It is a piece of the show's own production process, turned into a setting. Every cartoon has scrapped characters. Every show has design ideas that did not make it. The Amazing World of Gumball is the only one I can think of that decided to write those scraps into the world and let them be a place. It is an act of honesty that the show treats as an act of plot. The void is where the unfinished business lives. The show keeps suggesting that you, as the viewer, are responsible for what happens there, because the things in the void exist only because the audience stopped caring about them, and the things in the void will keep existing until the audience cares about something else. Then there is the cosmic register, which the show treats with its own kind of light, irreverent gravity. There is a figure in the Amazing World of Gumball who functions, in the world of the show, as something like the universe itself, an authority that can rewrite reality, that knows how the story works, that has opinions about the protagonists and the way they have been behaving. The show has played with this register in a handful of episodes that pull the curtain back on the rules of Elmore. There is a sense, in these episodes, that the show is not just a cartoon but a place, and that the place is being managed by something with a desk and a clipboard and a slightly bored attitude towards the assignments it has been given. The lovely cheek of it is that the show is willing to flirt with the metaphysics of its own existence, and to do it in the same tone of voice it uses for the lunchroom jokes. The universe of Elmore is not separate from the universe of being a cartoon. They are one universe, and the show is comfortable telling you so. The Reaper, when he appears, is a small, grim figure with a scythe and a workman's attitude. He is, in the way the show plays him, a civil servant. He has people to collect. He has paperwork. He is not particularly malicious. He is doing his job. What makes the Reaper memorable as the show uses him is that he is not feared in the way you would expect. Most cartoons treat the Reaper as a punchline or a horror, depending on tone. This one treats him as a recurring background presence with his own concerns, and the implication is that death in Elmore is one of the local conditions, the same as rain or homework. The kids deal with it. The adults deal with it. The Reaper deals with all of them, eventually. He does not enjoy his job, particularly. He does not hate it either. He is just there, the way unsettling civic functionaries are there in any town, and the show lets him be ordinary. There is also a small parade of one-off villains the show has built over the run, and they deserve a quick survey, because together, they form a portrait of the show's larger sense of humor about danger. There has been a deranged talking sentience inside a video game console. There has been a pyromaniac creature made of fire. There has been an apocalyptic cult formed by a single overenthusiastic child. There has been a sentient cardboard cutout. There has been a digital virus with charisma. The show is comfortable inventing a new species of antagonist whenever it needs one, and then never using them again, which is part of why the world feels so populated. It is a town in which any object you turn over might have an opinion, and where any opinion might be worth getting away from quickly. Now look at the parents the show has built around the children of Elmore Junior High, because the show has done something quietly remarkable with the older generation. Banana Bob and Banana Barbara are Banana Joe's parents, and the show has slowly told a long story about their marriage. Bob is cheerful, Barbara is volatile. They argue, sometimes ferociously, and Banana Joe spends entire episodes managing the temperature of the household, which gives you a new way to understand his compulsive joke-smithing. He is a child who has learned that the room gets quieter when he is funny. The implication is gentle but persistent. Some children are clowns because the alternative is silence in places where silence is not safe. Jackie Wilson is Tobias and Rachel's mother, drawn with the same neon palette and the same fashion magazine confidence as her daughter. She is, in the world of the show, an aspirational suburban woman, possibly an influencer in the loose sense, certainly the kind of mother whose self-image is intricately tied to the public success of her family. The carefully balanced thing about Jackie is that the show is willing to let her be vain and ambitious without despising her for it. She loves her children, she loves her husband, in her way. She also loves the version of her family that exists in the eyes of other families, and the show is honest about how those two kinds of love can warp each other when nobody is watching. Harold Wilson is Jackie's husband, a rainbow-haired older man who is, by the writer's design, almost exactly the kind of figure his son is going to grow up to be. He is a long-running portrait of confident mediocrity that has worked, somehow, in his favor. He has a comfortable house, he has a comfortable wife, he has every reason to believe that the world is on his side, and the show lets him believe that without intervening. The trick is in the family resemblance. You meet Harold and you understand Tobias differently. You meet Jackie and you understand Rachel differently. The household is not a backdrop, it is a slow argument about how families produce versions of themselves. Mr. Fitzgerald has already had his close-up. So has Penny's mother. What is worth saying about them together is that the show treats the Fitzgeralds as a household that has done the work of changing. They have been forced to update their assumptions about their own daughter, and they have, slowly, painfully, in plain view, done it. That is a rare thing for a cartoon to commit to. Many shows in this genre treat parents as static obstacles to be navigated. The Amazing World of Gumball treats them as people who are also growing, often in parallel to their children, sometimes in spite of them. Then there is the school staff again, briefly, because there are smaller adults in the show who deserve a note. The lunch staff, the aging gym teacher who occasionally substitutes for coach, the various office assistants and crossing guards and maintenance staff. The show keeps inserting these figures into the corners of the frame, often without lines, often without names, and yet it animates them with the same fidelity it gives the named characters. The hidden message is that no role is too small to belong to a person. The cartoon refuses to use background characters as background, and that refusal is one of its quiet ethical commitments. Now consider the medium itself, because The Amazing World of Gumball is not really a cartoon in the singular sense. It is a coordinated argument between many different forms of animation, all running at once. The Wattersons are two-dimensional vector drawings. The Robinsons are puppets. Bobert is a piece of three-dimensional computer graphics rendered to look like he has been ported over from a different show. Anton, Idaho, and several other classmates are photographs of real food and real plants given mouths and eyes. Hector is a piece of stop-motion wool. The Reaper sometimes looks hand-drawn in a different style than the others. The backgrounds are photographs. The world is, at any given moment, a collage. The deeper point of this approach is that it is not a gag. It is the show's central thesis about what it means to be alive in a place. Elmore is a town in which everyone is from a different medium, and the medium is, in a real sense, part of their identity. You can read the entire show as an argument about diversity, the kind that goes beyond superficial difference and into the actual structure of a person. Different people are made of different stuff. They process the world at different resolutions. They get hurt in different ways. The cartoon is patient enough to let this be visually true at all times, and it asks you to accept that the cat and the goldfish and the cloud and the pixel sprite are all, On the level of personhood, the same thing. It also means the cartoon can make jokes nobody else can make. A character drawn in flat 2 dimensions can have a different physics than a character rendered in 3. A character made of paper can be torn. A character made of clay can be reshaped. A character made of stop-motion wool can lose individual fibers in a way that would not work in any other medium. The show keeps finding small visual gags that depend on the specific physicality of each character's medium, and the gags add up to a coherent universe in which the rules feel handmade for each individual person. That is not a small achievement. Most cartoons land on a single uniform style and ask you to forget it. The Amazing World of Gumball reminds you that style is the show, and the show is the world. The credit for this should not be lost. The series was created by Ben Bachelet, who developed the concept at Cartoon Network Studios Europe out of a folder of rejected characters he had accumulated from earlier pitches. The reported origin story of the show is that he was asked to put together a pitch, and he reached, in a kind of last-ditch act, for the discarded ideas in his folder, designing the show specifically as a place where mismatched things could coexist. If that account is correct, and there is no reason to doubt it, then the entire premise of the cartoon is a working out of that single decision. The Wattersons are not a family in spite of their differences. They are a family because the show has decided that difference is the engine of the household. What is impressive extends to the production team. The show was made primarily in London at Cartoon Network Studios Europe, with animation handled across multiple studios including Boulder Media in Dublin and Studio Soy in Germany, depending on the season and the episode. The collaboration was not seamless. The show looks slightly different from one episode to the next, sometimes from one scene to the next, and the writers built that variation into the fabric of the show rather than fighting it. The implication is that the world of Elmore is the kind of world where consistency is a polite fiction, and the audience is being invited in on the joke. The original score, by Ben Lockett, deserves its own line. The music in The Amazing World of Gumball is one of its most underappreciated tools. It pivots from glassy synthpad to romantic strings to jagged comedy stings to something genuinely melancholic, often within the same scene. The score is not background, it is the show telling you what register a scene is in, often before the writing does. When the score gets soft and slow, the show is asking you to take a moment seriously, and when the score goes off the rails, the show is admitting that the moment is being deliberately broken. The quiet brilliance of the music is in how it gives the audience permission to feel things the writing is not always allowed to spell out. Cast continuity also matters here. Many of the adult voices, like Dan Russell as Richard and Teresa Gallagher as Nicole, stayed remarkably stable across the run, alongside other voice artists on the supporting characters. The kids' voices changed, the adults stayed. That is, I think, deliberate. The audience hears the adults the same way every time, and registers the children growing up by the way the children sound. It is a structural choice that mirrors what it actually feels like to grow up. The parents in your life always sound the same. You are the one whose voice keeps shifting underneath you. There are characters worth noting whose appearances are brief, but whose impact on the world of the show is large. Daisy the donkey is the mascot of a children's franchise within the show, a kind of corporate cartoon character whose presence in Elmore is always slightly off. The show plays with her the way it plays with all of its self-aware references to other cartoons. She is friendly, sometimes scary, sometimes sad, sometimes the focus of a small thematic argument about how children's media works on children. There is a hidden meta layer in how the show uses Daisy. The implication is that the children of Elmore have been raised, in part, by characters like her, and that the difference between the cute mascot and the things the cute mascot wants from you is a question worth asking. Sluzzledude is a holiday figure invented by the show, a fictional Yuletide creature with rules and traditions all his own, and his appearances are some of the show's most committed examples of inventing entire cultural artifacts as set dressing. The careful pleasure is in the seriousness of the commitment. He is not used once and discarded. He has lore, he has songs, he has, in the show's own internal logic, a holiday that is celebrated by everyone in Elmore. The implication is that the show is willing to do world-building work that is too thorough for the jokes it intends to make, and that the world-building is, in itself, part of the joke. You are watching a show in which an entire fake holiday is treated with the same reverence as a real one, and the joke lands because the reverence is sincere. The internet, in a few episodes, becomes a place you can visit, and the inhabitants of the internet are, in the show's vision of them, almost the worst people in the cast. They are loud, They are hostile, they are reductive, they are demanding, and the show treats them with affection because it understands that they are not strangers. They are everyone the Wattersons know, slightly transformed by the medium they are speaking through. What is observed here is how the show refuses to draw a clean line between the people and their online behavior. The kids who are kind in person can be cruel online. The adults who are sober in person can be ridiculous online. The internet is not a separate place. It is a different lighting condition on the same town. The cell, the small bacterial figure that recurs in 1 or 2 episodes, and the talking trees, and the personified building, and the sentient toaster, and the various inanimate objects that suddenly become characters when the script needs them to, all add up to one of the show's signature moves. Anything can be a person. Anything has been a person, in some episode, somewhere. The world is full to the brim with potential characters, and the show keeps reminding you that the line between scenery and protagonist is thinner than you think. Now circle back to the family at the center, because no matter how much the supporting cast grows, the heart of the show stays at the Wattersons' suburban house, in a building that has been redrawn and repainted and resized so many times that fans have made entire compilations of how inconsistent its layout is. The inconsistency is a feature. The house is alive, in the soft sense. It does not need to be the same house. It needs to be where the family is, and what the family is. The Wattersons have lived in versions of that house that defy basic spatial logic, and the show is comfortable with that, because comfort, in Elmore, is not a property of geometry. It is a property of who is in the room. Stay with the romances for a few minutes, because the show treats young romance with a seriousness it deserves and rarely gets. The Gumball and Penny relationship is the spine of that part of the storytelling, and what the writers do with it is unusually patient. The first season treats Gumball's feelings for Penny as a comedic obstacle. He cannot tell her. He cannot stop himself from blurting out the wrong thing. He cannot survive even a casual hallway encounter without a small public meltdown. That is the surface of it. Then the show, as the seasons stretch on, lets that crush become a relationship, and the relationship has, like the children inside it, a complicated structure. They are not boyfriend and girlfriend in the abstract sitcom way. They are 2 children who like each other and are trying to figure out what that means while also trying to figure out who they are. The show lets them break up. The show lets them get back together. The show lets them be jealous, careless, generous, embarrassed, sometimes downright cruel in the way young couples can be when they are still learning the difference between honesty and unkindness. What is honest about it is that the writers are not interested in protecting the relationship from those moments. They are interested in letting the relationship be real, which means letting it be a place where mistakes happen and get apologized for, and either forgiven or not. The result is one of the most honest depictions of pre-adolescent romance in any cartoon, and it is happening in a show about a blue cat and a peanut. There is a romance writers do not always notice in the brief window where Darwin's attention turns elsewhere, and Darwin's later attachment to Carrie has already had its moment. But it is worth saying again that the show treats Darwin's emotional life as fully real. He does not have crushes the way Gumball has crushes. He has affection, he has loyalty, he has, in 1 or 2 episodes, a kind of slow, tender attentiveness to other characters that, if it played out between adults, would read unambiguously as love. Darwin is the part of the family that has not learned to be ashamed of feeling things openly. The show keeps that intact across the whole run. He never closes off. He learns to be careful, but he never learns to be cold. The Tobias and Rachel sibling arc deserves a closer look because it is one of the show's neatest pieces of family characterization. They are siblings who love each other in the slightly performative, slightly competitive way of suburban families that have decided publicly to be a unit. They post for the photo. They keep the family brand intact. The show suggests, in small details, that Rachel has been the prototype, the older sister whose successes and failures Tobias is now running the rerun of. The implication is that Tobias's confidence is borrowed from Rachel's, that his swagger is partly a copy of hers in the way younger siblings copy older ones, and that the gentle melancholy of Rachel's departures from the show is in part a melancholy about who he is going to become without her in the next room. Penny's social circle, the friends she has at school and the cheerleaders and classmates she shares much of her life with, are worth a section together. By most accounts, these characters are not always at the center of episodes, but the show takes them seriously enough that, when an episode does center on them, they are revealed to be fully realized people with their own anxieties and opinions and small private dramas. What is consistent is the consistency. The show could have used Penny's friends as flat satellites of Penny herself. Instead, every time the camera turns toward them, they have something specific going on. They are not waiting in the wings to be plot devices. They are living their own lives. They just are not the protagonists of the show you happen to be watching. There is a wider point to be made here about the way the show treats girls in general. It is not flashy about it. It does not call attention to itself. But across the run of the show, the girls of Elmore are not used as foils for the boys. They have their own friendships, their own enemies, their own desires, their own confusions. Penny is not just Gumball's girlfriend. Carrie is not just Darwin's. Tina Rex is not just a problem to be solved. Anais is not just the smart sister. Susie is not a joke about her appearance. Jamie is not a parade of bully shorthand. The girls in this show have, on the whole, been written with the same care as the boys, and that care is one of the things that has made the show ageless in a way many of its peers are not. A few more figures from the broader town deserve their moment. There is a recurring small business manager who runs one of the restaurants the Wattersons patronize, by most accounts a small but reliable supporting figure with a fixed place in the geography of the town. The show treats him with the same seriousness it treats Larry and the bus driver, which is to say that he has a life, opinions, a tone of voice, a relationship with his customers. He is part of how Elmore works as a small economy. The implication, again, is that everyone who keeps the town running has been observed and remembered by the writers, and that the audience is being given a chance to remember them too. Mr. Robinson's old colleagues, when they appear, give you another piece of his backstory. There are characters who used to perform with him in the old children's show his career began with. They show up in occasional flashbacks, and the implication is that he was, briefly, a working part of a creative community, that there were people who knew him before the bitterness. The careful tenderness of these brief flashback figures is that they let you see Mr. Robinson the way he would like to be seen, just long enough to understand why the gap between then and now hurts him. The fairy, Mr. Small's recurring acquaintance in some episodes, his various counselor colleagues, his small New Age associates, all add up to a picture of a kind of alternative community inside Elmore that exists in the seams between the more conventional adult lives. They meditate, they cleanse, they consult, they sell each other crystals. The show is gentle with them in the way it is gentle with Mr. Small. It finds them silly. It also finds them sincere. It refuses to treat sincerity as a worse vice than cynicism, and it lets the New Age figures of Elmore be wholly themselves without needing to be debunked. The school cafeteria, when the camera lingers in it, contains some of the show's most reliable small character work. There is a recurring trio of kids who occupy a back table and exchange small bits of philosophical fragmenty dialogue. There is the lunch lady, whose dishes are sometimes alive. There are the kids who have been at the same lunch table since the show began, and whose presence is, in itself, a kind of comfort. What these scenes do is remind you that the school is full of people who are not the protagonists of any storyline, and that those people are the population. You are not following the only kids who matter. You are following two specific kids in a sea of other kids who are, statistically, just as full of life as the ones with episodes. Now consider what the show is doing in the late seasons specifically, because it changes texture. By the 5th and 6th seasons, the writers are clearly aware that their audience has been growing up with the show, and the writing starts to allow itself slightly older preoccupations. The metafictional elements get sharper. The Rob arc gets darker. The episodes that touch on the simulation question, the ones that ask, slyly, whether anyone in Elmore is real, and what real would even mean, become more direct. The show never quite commits to a simulation reading of itself. It also never quite denies one. It dances on the line in a way that lets the older fans bring their own anxieties to the show and use it to think about them, while the younger fans continue to enjoy the surface jokes. The simulation theory, as fans have built it across the years, takes the show's recurring acknowledgments of its own constructedness and weaves them into a coherent reading that Elmore is, in some sense, not a real place. Different fans push the reading in different directions. Some say it is a computer simulation. Some say it is a dream. Some say it is a kind of purgatory. Some say it is a child's imagination. The show has not endorsed any of these readings. It has, on multiple occasions, played with elements that would be consistent with several of them at once. The honest summary is that the simulation theory is fan interpretation, not canon, and that the show has been deliberate about leaving it as interpretation. That deliberation is the genius. The writers decided early that they would not foreclose on the question, and the openness of the question has kept the show generative for fans who want to keep digging. There is also the matter of how the Amazing World of Gumball treats its own production realities. The show acknowledges its own scheduling. It acknowledges its own budget. It acknowledges its own censors. It acknowledges, in small references that fans pick up on, the fact that it has been written by humans who are paid and have deadlines and have to negotiate with the channel about what they can put on screen. These references are gentle. They are also unusual. Most kids' cartoons protect the illusion of an autonomous world. This one keeps reminding you that there are people on the other side of the camera, and that the people on the other side of the camera are also, in some sense, characters in the larger story. That openness is part of what made the cartoon feel modern in a way that has aged well. It is worth remembering that the show ran on Cartoon Network from 2011 through 2019, with 6 full seasons across that period, and that since its conclusion, it has been announced that a continuation is in the works. The continuation has been described in trade press as a film and a follow-up series rather than a reboot, with significant continuity with what came before. As of the time of writing, that continuation has not aired in full, and so the safest thing to say about it is that it exists, that it has been talked about by the people who are making it, and that any speculation about its plot is, at this point, speculation. The show as we have it is 6 seasons, plus the various shorts and bonus material released across the years. And that is the body of work this essay is about. What the announcement of the continuation has done, in the meantime, is force fans to revisit the original run with the awareness that it might not be the only run. The show that was perceived for years as having a fixed ending now has an extension on the way, and that changes how some fans read the existing episodes. Some are happy, some are nervous, some have written long essays about the elements they hope to see continued. What stands on its own about the original run is that it is complete in itself, even if more is coming. The themes resolve. The characters arrive at versions of themselves that feel earned. The show stops, when it stops, on a note that does not require continuation in order to make sense. Whatever the new material does or does not add, the old material stands. Within that old material, there are episodes that function as small character thesis statements, and it is worth tipping a hat to a few of them. There is the episode about the Watterson family's finances, which puts Nicole's labor and Richard's avoidance into direct collision. There is the episode about Darwin's origins, which forces Gumball to confront how much of his identity is built around his brother. There is the episode about the void, which gives Rob his foundation. There is the episode in which the entire show is rendered in a different style for an extended sequence, and which uses the change in medium to say something about identity that no dialogue could quite reach. There is the episode in which Penny breaks her shell, which I have already mentioned, but which deserves another mention because it is the show at its most confident about the relationship between visual change and emotional change. The way the show ends its run is worth dwelling on. The final season pulls together threads that have been quietly running for years. The Rob arc reaches a kind of crescendo. The Gumball and Penny relationship arrives at something more stable. The Watterson family is allowed, in the closing stretch, a few moments of quiet tenderness that do not need to be paid off by a joke. The implication is that the writers knew, or at least suspected, that this might be it, and arranged the closing episodes accordingly. The show does not provide a tidy bow. It provides a pause. It lets the characters be where they are and trusts the audience to imagine the rest, until and unless more episodes come to fill in the picture. What does all of this add up to in terms of character? The thread running through every Gumball character, on reflection, is the same thread, expressed in different mediums and different proportions for each of them. The show insists that the way a person looks is the way a person is. It insists that personality is not a separate layer applied on top of a body, but a property of the body itself. It insists that everyone in a town deserves to be looked at as if they are the main character of their own life, even if the camera is only with them for a few seconds. It insists that the world is full of people, that those people have been processed by very different forms, and that the work of being a community is the work of letting all those forms coexist without smoothing them into a single shape. This is a quietly radical idea for a children's cartoon. Most shows in the format flatten their casts. They might use a few different visual styles for a couple of running gags, but they will mostly settle into a single coherent look, because that is what is easy to produce and easy to sell. The Amazing World of Gumball refused that ease. The show committed to the difficulty of being a place where the design language is fundamentally inconsistent, where the cast is structurally heterogeneous, where one character is a pixel and the next is a photograph and the next is a piece of stop-motion wool and the next is a vector cat in trousers. The cost of that commitment was high. The payoff is the show you are listening to me describe. It is worth lingering on what it means that the cast is held together by Nicole and not by Gumball, because that is one of the things the show is most quietly insistent about. The title character is Gumball. The structural protagonist is Gumball. The plot follows Gumball. The emotional load, however, is carried by his mother. She is the one whose state of mind determines whether the family is functioning. She is the one whose mood the kids check in the morning before they decide how to behave at breakfast. She is the one whose silences are louder than her husband's outbursts. The implication that runs underneath the comedy is that in a household with one functional adult, that adult is the operating system the whole household runs on, and any cartoon that pretends otherwise is being polite. The show is also, more quietly than it lets on, about money. The Wattersons are not poor in the way television families are usually poor, where the word is invoked once and never visited again. They are working class in a specific, recognizable way. They worry about bills. They worry about the car. They worry about the mortgage. They take out loans occasionally, with consequences that follow them for episodes. They have, in one of the more pointed late-season storylines, a brush with losing the house entirely. What is unusual about how the show handles money is that it never moralizes about it. The family is not poor because of Richard's laziness, even though Richard is lazy. The family is not poor because of Nicole's career, even though Nicole works in a rainbow factory. The family is poor because being a family in the kind of suburb the show is set in is expensive, and there are exactly so many hours in the day, and exactly so many of those hours can be sold. The Rainbow Factory itself is one of the show's underrated world-building details. It is where Nicole works. It produces, on the level of in-show fiction, rainbows. The implication is that even the magic of the world is being industrially manufactured, that even something as wondrous as a rainbow is, in Elmore, a product that someone has to clock in to make. The clever bit is that the show extends its critique of work to the most fantastic elements of its setting. There is no enchanted economy here. There is just one economy, and rainbows are a line item in it. Nicole, in her quiet, exhausted way, is the labor that keeps the wonder running, and the show never lets you forget it. The factory boss who appears in some episodes, and the various other corporate figures the show introduces and discards, all fit a pattern. The show is suspicious of bosses, gently but consistently. It is suspicious of bureaucracies. It is suspicious of the corporate uncle who shows up to either help or hurt the Watterson household. It is not paranoid about these figures. It is just clear-eyed. They have interests. The interests do not, in general, overlap with the families. The show treats this as a fact of life, the same way it treats the weather. What is admirable is that none of it is preached. The show lets you live in a world where some people decide and others are decided for, and lets you draw your own conclusions about which side of that line you would prefer to be on. The recurring character of Mr. Cuddles deserves another mention because of how he reframes Anais. Once you accept that her bear is, in some sense, alive and aware, her whole inner life rearranges. The smartest member of the household has a confidant. The least seen child has a friend who has been watching her the whole time. The show does not push this. It lets the implication sit and lets you choose what to do with it. What is generous about this is that the show is willing to plant ideas it does not need to harvest. There is a version of Anais' story you can build entirely out of the implication that Mr. Cuddles has been listening, and the show is content to leave that version available for you if you want it. Two more figures from the school deserve attention before we move into the closing arc. The first is the talking finger, the small disembodied hand who shows up in a few episodes and operates as a kind of background curiosity. The show treats him as an unproblematic citizen of the town. He has a job, he has friends. He goes about his day. The implication is that there is no creature too strange to be a person in Elmore, that anything that can hold an opinion is, by definition, a member of the town. The second is the recurring character of the substitute teacher who arrives, occasionally, to take over for Miss Simeon during one of her many entanglements. Each substitute is, in the show's tradition, a fully realized oddity. There has been a substitute who was a piece of theatrical furniture. There has been a substitute who was a wave of fire. There has been a substitute who was, briefly, possibly the universe itself. The show keeps using these one-off substitutes as a way to remind you that the classroom is not a stable place. It is a portal through which figures arrive, do their work, and leave. Now consider, with a little tenderness, the way the show talks about growing up. Gumball is 12 for the entire run, in calendar terms, but he is not the same 12 in Season 6 as he was in Season 1. The writers and animators have charted a kind of secret aging across the show, where the experiences pile up faster than the years can keep track of them. He has had heartbreaks, he has had failures, he has had moments of unexpected grace that he was not ready for. He has lost things, he has made amends, sometimes. He has refused to make amends, other times. He is, by the end of the run, a person with a history, and that is one of the hardest things any cartoon can achieve with a perpetually 12 protagonist. Most shows pretend it does not happen. This one quietly insists that it does. Darwin grows up in parallel, but his growth is different. Darwin gets gentler. Darwin learns to weather things. He is still, at his core, the goldfish who chose to be a son, but the choice gets heavier and more deliberate as he goes. He has, by the later seasons, the kind of patience with his brother that you usually only see in adult siblings looking after each other. The show implies that Darwin has come to understand that Gumball will not always be 12, and that what he does for Gumball now is what they will have to look back on later. There is a small unspoken grief inside Darwin's later episodes about the way time changes families, and the show is brave enough not to underline it. Anais grows up most visibly. She is still a small pink rabbit. She does not visibly change shape. But the things she chooses to be in the room about, the questions she is willing to ask out loud, the moments at which she decides to step out of the wallpaper and assert herself, all shift over the run of the show. She is more present in later episodes than she was in early ones. The show is gradually centering her in stories that would have been about Gumball if they had aired earlier. The implication is that she is coming into her own, that she is no longer content to be the genius child everyone keeps forgetting to consult, that she is going to make the family see her, even if she has to break something to do it. The parents stay where they are, mostly, and that stillness is part of what lets the kids grow. Richard does not change. Nicole does not change, beyond the slow accumulation of tiredness around her eyes. The household holds its shape because the adults have, in their different ways, decided to be the same person from one year to the next. The hidden virtue of the parental immobility is that it is the floor the children grow against. They know what the room is going to do, they can predict their own home, they can move inside that predictability, and the show lets the moving be the story. Two characters whose effect on the show is larger than their screen time should be named. There is a talking shadow figure who occasionally surfaces in dream sequences and metafictional moments, one of the more elusive recurring presences. The show plays with him in glimpses, never quite committing to whether he is a character, a metaphor, or a piece of stage equipment that has decided it has opinions. The other is the small mute creature who shows up in the back of certain shots, who fans have cataloged and given names to, but who the show has never officially identified. These figures are part of the show's larger willingness to leave space at the edge of the frame. Not every character has to have a name. Not every name has to be public. The show preserves a sense that you have not been told everything, and that more is happening in the world of Elmore than is being shown to you, and that absence is, in its own way, the most generous thing the show does. Step back from the cast for a moment and consider the show's audience, because the audience is part of the story too. The Amazing World of Gumball first aired in a year when many of its viewers were younger than the Wattersons themselves. Those viewers grew up alongside the show. They went through their own years of being 12, of being 4, of being whatever age the show was currently representing, and they did it with this cartoon as one of the lights in the background of their lives. By the time the show ended, those viewers were old enough to look back on it the way adults look back on the cartoons of their childhood, with a complicated affection that knows what was good about it and what was not. What is durable about the show is that it survives that adult gaze. You can revisit it as an older viewer and find more in it, not less. The jokes for kids hold up. The jokes for adults reveal themselves. The emotional architecture, which the writers were careful never to oversell, becomes clearer with time. That continuity of audience is one of the reasons the announcement of the continuation lands the way it does. The fans who waited for it were not waiting because the show stopped being relevant. They were waiting because the show kept being relevant. The argument has been made, in various essays and video pieces by fans of the show, that The Amazing World of Gumball is one of the formative cartoons of the late 2010s, and that its influence on the way cartoons can be built has only really started to be felt in the cartoons that have come after it. That is a fan argument, not a fact. But it is not an obviously wrong fan argument. You can see traces of Gumball's mixed medium confidence in shows that came later. You can see traces of its tonal flexibility, its willingness to be both silly and serious in the same scene, in any number of contemporary cartoons aimed at older children. There is a final character I want to spend a few sentences on, because the show has put a piece of itself into him in a way that gets overlooked. The narrator of certain episodes, the brief voice in the title sequence in early seasons, the small announcer figure who is sometimes used to bridge between scenes, is one of the show's quietest signatures. He is not really a character in the strict sense. He does not have a body. He does not have a name. He has, however, a voice, and the voice has personality. He sounds like someone who finds Elmore amusing and a little dangerous and worth telling you about anyway. He sounds like the show talking to itself. The disarming thing is that the show has its own narrator-shaped self-awareness baked into its delivery, and that self-awareness is gentle and warm rather than smug. If you watch the entire run with the idea that every character is, in some way, a small experiment in what a person could be, the show resolves into something almost philosophical. The cat asks how to be brave when you are anxious. The fish asks how to be loving when you are watching. The rabbit asks how to be smart in a room that does not want to listen. The pink dad asks how to refuse to grow up and still be loved. The blue mom asks how to grow up enough for the whole household and still be a person inside the carrying. The peanut asks how to step out of a shell that was, for a long time, the only thing keeping her safe. The ghost asks how to be alive when the alive is no longer available. The balloon asks how to be good in a world that wants to puncture goodness. The toast asks how to be made of soft material in a world full of teeth. The dinosaur asks how to be too big and still be welcome. The robot asks how to learn what feeling is. The hot dog asks how to be patient when you have been forgotten. The four-eyed forgotten figure asks how to make the world remember you when it has thrown you away. The answers the show gives are not statements. They are scenes. The cat learns slowly that he can love his brother. The fish learns slowly that he can love a girl. The rabbit learns slowly that she can let her family see her. The pink dad learns, occasionally, that he can be brave for the length of one specific moment, and that the moment matters. The blue mom learns, occasionally, that she is allowed to take a breath. The peanut learns, more than once, that the shape she chooses is not a betrayal of the shape she started with. The ghost learns that there are still things worth wanting, even after everything she has lost. The balloon learns that his goodness, if it is real, does not need to be tested to be true. The toast learns that being remade is not the same as being unborn. The dinosaur learns that she can be soft, sometimes, even if her body does not change. The robot learns that the children around him will not always run the right operating system, and that he can be patient with them anyway. The hot dog gets, eventually, a moment in which his grievance is heard. The four-eyed figure gets, eventually, a story arc that allows him a measure of dignity. None of this is delivered as a moral. The show does not stop and tell you what it is doing. It only does what it does, in episode after episode, until the pattern resolves. The argument behind every character is, in the end, that the show was making a single argument with all of them at once. The argument is that there is no such thing as a minor person. There is no such thing as a character who is not worth the effort of being made into a person. Anything that can be drawn can be alive. Anything that is alive deserves to be looked at. And every household, every classroom, every town, every cartoon is a community of differently designed people trying to survive each other and themselves with whatever materials they have been given. The most surprising thing about the show is that this argument is what it remembers to do when it has nothing else on its mind. In episodes that are mostly about a single joke, the show still gives the supporting characters a beat, a moment of dignity, a tiny piece of interior life. In episodes that are mostly about a plot, the show still finds a way to remind you that the plot is happening to people, not to mannequins. The discipline of that respect is what makes The Amazing World of Gumball ageless. The animation is, in places, dated. The slang is, in places, dated. The visual references will not always read for younger viewers in a few years' time. The respect for character will. The respect for character is what will keep the show on lists and in essays and in late-night sleep videos for as long as anyone is making them. There are categories of character in the Amazing World of Gumball that fans have argued about for years and that deserve a slower look. The first category is the family adjacent, the people who keep orbiting the Watterson household even though they are not in it. There is a colleague of Nicole's whose entanglement with her professional life recurs across a handful of episodes. There are former co-workers of Richard's, in the brief stretches when he has had a job, who keep cropping up. There are friends of the family the show treats as recurring fixtures, the kind of acquaintances who would not show up to a wedding, but who would, if asked, send a card. What these characters do is make the family feel embedded. The Wattersons are not in a void. They are in a network of casual relationships that they neither completely choose nor completely escape, and that network is, on its own, one of the show's quietest forms of realism. The second category is the figures who appear only in dreams. The Wattersons dream often in the show. Their dreams are populated. There are people in their dreams who are clearly not real, or who are, in some sense, more real than the waking versions, and the show treats those figures with the same care it treats anyone else. What is generous about this is that the show is willing to give a recurring dream figure a personality. The thing that visits Gumball in his anxiety dream has feelings about Gumball. The thing that visits Nicole in her exhausted dream has feelings about Nicole. The dreams are not just symbolic, they are populated places, and the population has agency. The third category is the figures who appear only in the title sequence or in transitional moments. Eagle-eyed fans have cataloged faces in the opening sequence who never appear in the show again, who seem to exist only in the title card, who appear to be waiting for episodes that never came. What this preserves is that the show was not lying about how many people lived in Elmore. There were always more residents than there were episodes to use them in. The titles are a kind of demographic honesty. They tell you that this town is large, even if the camera can only cover a small piece of it on any given week. A few names are worth setting down for the record, because they are the kind of details fans love to know and worth verifying with care. The Watterson family's house has been given a street address inside the show, and fans have debated the specifics, but the basic geography is Elmore, in a country that has been treated, in the loose sense, as a stand-in for both Britain and the United States. The show's setting is famously slippery on this point, and the writers have leaned into the slipperiness rather than picking a side. There are British accents and American accents. There are British references and American references. The dollar bills are dollars, but the schoolyard sometimes feels more like a British comprehensive than an American middle school. What is delightful is that the show is happy to be set in a kind of composite suburb that does not exist on any map, because the suburb the show is interested in is the suburb in the back of your head. That ambiguity is part of why the show has traveled so well internationally. It is not specifically American. It is not specifically British. It is the suburb. It is the place children grow up in when they grow up in a small town with a strip mall and a school and a couple of neighbors who hate each other. The cast of voices the show uses, the mix of British and American performers, the way the writing borrows from both traditions of comedy, all reinforce the placelessness. You can watch the show from anywhere and recognize the world. There is one piece of the production I want to come back to, because it is easy to underestimate, and that is the writing room. The show was led across its run by a small group of writers and creative leads, with Ben Bachelet as the original creator and showrunner for most of the run. The way the show writes its supporting characters is uncommonly democratic. A writer can pitch an episode about a hot dog who has been forgotten, and the show will run it. A writer can pitch an episode about the substitute teacher who is, briefly, made of fire, and the show will run it. The implication is that the writing room treated the world as an open system into which any creature could be inserted, as long as the creature had a story and the story was honest. That openness shows up everywhere in the final product. The episodes are not afraid to commit to weird premises, because the weird premises are the show's primary mode of storytelling. It is also worth noting, neutrally, that the show was not free of controversy in its time. Like most long-running cartoons, it was occasionally edited for broadcast in different countries. Some jokes that ran in early seasons were softened or removed in later airings. Some episodes were quietly retired from rotation in particular markets. The reasons for these edits are not always public, and the appropriate thing to say is that the show, like every show, existed inside a regulatory environment, and that the team navigated that environment with as much creative integrity as they could, and occasionally lost battles to it. None of this changes what is on screen in the episodes as broadcast. It only adds a small amount of context for anyone watching with curiosity about the difference between what the show is and what it tried to be. Now look, briefly, at the friendships the show has built that are not romances but are arguably as important as them. Gumball and Darwin are the most obvious. But the friendships among the supporting cast are themselves a kind of artwork. Tobias and Banana Joe spend a great deal of time together, and the friendship between them is one of the show's running observations about how children who are loud find each other and prefer each other's company to the company of quieter peers. Carrie's friendships with the rest of the school have a specific late adolescent texture, the sense of being close to people without ever fully being one of them. Alan's small social circle, which includes Carmen and a handful of other sensitive children, has a tenderness that the show treats with great care, and it deserves attention because shows that depict sensitive friendship as bravery are rare. What lifts the friendships in the show is that they are all different, that no two of them are the same shape, and that the cartoon refuses to insist on a single template of what closeness should look like. There is a recurring small thread in the show about loneliness, and it is one of the more grown-up things the show is willing to do. Almost every character has been allowed, in some episode, to be lonely in a way they cannot share with anyone else. Gumball's loneliness when his family does not understand him. Nicole's loneliness when she is the only one who knows what needs to be done. Darwin's loneliness when his sweetness is mistaken for naivety. Anais' loneliness when no one else can keep up. Penny's loneliness when her family does not yet see the version of her that has emerged. Carrie's loneliness, almost by definition, in being made of less material than the world expects. Hector's loneliness in being told for his entire life that he is dangerous. Bobert's loneliness in being a child without a clear way of belonging. Tina's loneliness in being treated as a threat. Alan's loneliness in being the only one in the room who has not, on principle, given up. What is generous is that the show acknowledges all of these loneliness states without pretending they can be cured. It just lets them be visible. The cartoon's tonal range is sometimes treated as a chaotic strength, but it is more disciplined than it looks. The show is willing to be silly. The show is willing to be sincere. The show is willing to be both in the same scene. What makes that range work is the underlying respect for character. The silliness lands because the people inside the silliness have weight. The sincerity lands because the people inside the sincerity have been allowed to be ridiculous earlier in the same episode. The two registers reinforce each other rather than fighting each other, and the writers and animators have been clearly aware of that balance from the beginning. You do not get this kind of tonal balance by accident. You get it by deciding, repeatedly, that no joke is worth diminishing a person, and no emotional moment is worth pretending the person stopped being funny. One more category of character before we move into the close. The villains who are not really villains. The Wattersons have, across the run of the show, encountered a number of figures who could have been written as antagonists in a more straightforward cartoon. The corporate uncle, the malevolent appliance, the aggressive customer, the unsettling stranger on the bus. The Amazing World of Gumball almost always finds a way to deflate these figures into people, to give them a small explanation, to acknowledge that they are also in the story by accident and are doing what they can with what they have. What is striking is that the cartoon has refused, again and again, to use simple villains as engines for its plots. The plots are powered, instead, by misunderstandings, by emotional miscalibrations, by the small daily friction of a world full of differently shaped people trying to occupy the same space. That is a more demanding way to write a cartoon. It is also why the cartoon ages so well. Look once more at the Watterson kids in a single frame. They are sitting on the couch. The cat is fidgeting, the fish is gentle, the rabbit is patient. The two parents are off-screen, doing whatever they are doing, holding the household together in the next room. The television is on. The children are watching some other cartoon, which is, often, in the show's playful logic, a parody of an actual cartoon. They are commenting on it the way children comment on cartoons. They are being children. What is rare is that the show is willing to slow down and let this moment exist. Most cartoons cannot afford to. Most cartoons need every minute to be funny. This one lets the couch scene be the heart of the episode. Sometimes, because it knows that the couch scene is what its audience will remember in the long run. The big jokes will be funny. The big plots will be diverting. The couch will be home. There is a way to understand the show's appeal that has to do with this, with its willingness to be a place rather than just a sequence of events. The Amazing World of Gumball is a cartoon you can leave on while you do something else and feel as if someone is in the room with you. The The cast is loud, the cast is friendly, the cast is, in spite of all its strangeness, deeply familiar. That familiarity is not a trick. It is the result of years of careful, patient writing that has made every character into someone you can recognize. They feel like people you might have grown up next door to. They feel like classmates you might have had. They feel like the people in your own family, refracted through bright colors and impossible bodies, and 1,000 small visual tricks. The trick is that the strangeness has not kept them at a distance. The strangeness has, somehow, made them closer. It is worth pausing on a few episodes that fans have returned to most often, not to recount them in full, but to note the kind of character work they were doing. There is an episode in which Gumball and Darwin try to make Anais a friend, and the episode is funny in the usual way, and then quietly devastating in its closing minutes when it shows you, with very few words, that Anais understood exactly what they were doing and let them do it, because the gesture mattered more than the success. There is an episode that takes a closer look at Richard's career, or his lack of one, and which forces Nicole to confront the assumptions she has been making about her husband for years. There is an episode that builds Carrie into a more complete person by letting her, briefly, leave her usual sad girl register and try to be enthusiastic, with results that are awkward and tender and entirely earned. Each of these episodes is, in itself, a small character study. Each of them adds another layer to the figures the show is building. Each of them survives a rewatch because the writers were not just looking for the next punchline, they were looking for the next thing the character could survive being shown. There is an entire subgenre of Amazing World of Gumball episodes in which the camera follows a side character for nearly the entire running time, and Gumball is a guest in his own show. The episode that gives Penny the center of the frame. The episode that gives Anais the center of the frame. The episode that lets Bobert be the protagonist of his own small story. The episode that follows the bus driver through one shift. What these displacement episodes prove is that the show is not actually a show about Gumball. It is a show about Elmore. Gumball is the lens. The town is the subject. Any of the citizens, on the right week, can be the main character. The cartoon never quite admits this, but the structure of the run keeps confirming it. The art direction across the run deserves another note. The color palette of the show has shifted over the seasons in ways that fans have cataloged in detail. The earliest episodes tend towards slightly warmer, softer tones. The middle seasons tighten up. The later seasons get bolder, with more saturated colors and sharper contrast, especially in the moments when the show wants to push into a heightened emotional or surreal register. What is deliberate about the art direction is that the changes are not accidental. The show is not just refining its look. It is letting its look mature alongside its characters. By the time you reach the final seasons, the visual confidence of the show matches the writing's confidence, and the result is a cartoon that looks like it knows exactly what it is, even when what it is involves a balloon and a cactus on a small autumnal walk in the suburbs. The sound design across the run is one of those technical accomplishments that fans rarely talk about, and that is doing enormous load-bearing work. The thuds, the clicks, the rustles, the way the cartoon synchronizes moments of physical comedy with sound effects pulled from old-school cartoon traditions and from real-world recordings, all combine into a soundscape that supports the visual collage. A piece of toast and a piece of fruit and a pixel spider all need to sound like they exist in the same room, and the sound design accomplishes that with a kind of stubborn craft. What is impressive is that the show takes the sound world as seriously as the visual world. The mixing is detailed. The sonic identity of the show is unmistakable. 5 seconds of audio from any episode is enough to recognize the cartoon, even with your eyes shut. There is a quiet question fans have asked about the show's politics, and the appropriate thing to say is also the boring thing to say. The show has, on the whole, refused to take overt political stances. It is gently sympathetic to working people. It is gently suspicious of rich people. It is gently kind to outsiders. It is gently mocking of those who think too well of themselves. It is, in the broadest sense, humanist, in the way many children's cartoons have been humanist when they are at their best. But it does not lecture, and it does not preach. What is sharp about its gentleness is that the gentleness is not an absence of conviction, it is the conviction itself. The cartoon believes that any character could be the center of a story. That belief is a politics, in the loose sense, and the cartoon practices it with stubbornness across its entire run. Now think about the legacy. Cartoons that are talked about for a long time after they end tend to be talked about for one of two reasons. Either they did something stylistically new that other shows had to reckon with, or they did something emotionally true that the audience cannot let go of. The Amazing World of Gumball did both. The mixed media approach forced other cartoons to think about the possibilities of style. The character work forced the audience to think about the possibilities of feeling. The show was, in the years it was airing, sometimes underrated, sometimes treated as a footnote among the more famous animated series of the period. In the years since, the appraisal has begun to shift. Fans, critics, and other animators have started giving the show its due. The continuation announcement is, in part, a recognition of that shift. The audience has not gone away. The audience has gotten older and louder and has demanded more of what they grew up with. That makes a video about every Gumball character into something slightly more than a list. It makes it a kind of inventory of a place that mattered. The town the show built is not real, but the affection people have for it is. The characters are not real, but the way those characters have shaped people's habits of attention, their willingness to look closely at strangers, their patience with the differently shaped, has been real. The cartoon was a small school in those habits. Every episode, in its way, taught the lesson that there is no such thing as a minor person. Children grew up with that lesson. Some of them are adults now. There is, finally, the inevitable question of what a show like this leaves behind, and the most honest answer is that what it leaves behind is the cast itself. The cartoon will exist as long as the streaming services keep it available. The episodes will play. The voices will sound the way they sounded. The animation will be what it was. But the characters, in some real sense, have left the show and gone into the audience. Gumball is a kind of public reference now, the same way certain other long-running cartoon characters are public references. You can mention him, and people who watch the show will know what you mean. You can describe a small emotional crisis as a Nicole moment, and a certain kind of person will laugh. You can call a refusal to grow up a Richard, or an over-prepared 4-year-old an Anais. The cast has entered the language. What the show built into them is that they are legible without being thin. They are vivid enough to be shorthand and rich enough to resist being reduced to it. If you came here for a list of secrets, the secret is the design philosophy. The cat is a cat because the cat is an anxious child dressed up as confidence. The fish is a fish because the fish is the most patient kind of love this show could put in a body. The rabbit is a rabbit because the rabbit is the smallest member of the household, and the show wanted you to keep underestimating her. The pink dad is a pink dad because pink, in the color theory of the show, is the color of arrested development and warm vulnerability, and the show needed those two things to be the same shape. The blue mum is a blue mum because the show needed cool, fierce competence, and the color of the sky and the color of a deep ocean had to live in the same animal. Every design choice is a piece of psychology made visible. Every visual joke is a sentence about character. The show is a long argument about how identity and design and behavior are inseparable, and it is willing to make the argument again, in a different medium, for every member of its cast. There is a soft ache to looking back at all of this, because cartoons that were this good are rare, and the years in which they air do not last forever. The show ended. The show is coming back, in some form, but the original run is the original run, and the original run is closed. The characters as they are will stay as they are. The voice actors who were children are not children anymore. The animators who drew the first season have moved on to other projects. The writers have other shows. The studios have other slates. The world that produced The Amazing World of Gumball does not exist in exactly the form it did, and any continuation will be its own thing, made by people who are, however lovingly, different people from the ones who made the original. That is how art works. It is also why what we have already is worth treating with care. So you have it. The cat and the fish and the rabbit and the pink dad and the blue mum. The peanut and the ghost and the giant and the balloon and the cactus and the dinosaur and the robot and the toast and the cloud and the potato and the flower and the pixel sprite and the chin and the ice cream cone and the half-cow girl. The bear principal and the baboon teacher and the small green counselor and the rock who works every job in town and the bus driver and the donut sheriff and the strange old neighbors, and the seniors with their lustful misadventures, the four-eyed kid with the long memory and the long grudge, the narrator, the void, the whole quiet, generous, slightly cracked town of Elmore. Every one of them was built with care, by people who decided that the best children's cartoon of their generation would be one that took its characters as seriously as the characters took themselves, even when the characters were ridiculous, and especially when nobody was paying close attention. The Amazing World of Gumball ran for 6 seasons on Cartoon Network across roughly the years 2011 through 2019. It was created by Ben Bachelet. It was animated across multiple studios in Europe. It was voiced by an ensemble cast that, by most accounts, included Logan Grove, Jacob Hopkins, Nicholas Cantu, Kwesi Boakye, Terrell Ransom Jr., Danielle T. Hansley Jr., Kyla Ray Kowalewski, Dan Russell, Teresa Gallagher, and many others. It was scored by Ben Lockett. It mixed 2-dimensional animation, 3-dimensional computer graphics, photography, puppetry, and stop motion. It built a town. It populated the town. It gave the population, however briefly, a dignity. The town is still there. The streaming services are open. The episodes are sitting in the queue. The cat is still anxious. The fish is still patient. The rabbit is still smarter than anyone is letting her be. The whole family is still on the couch, watching something else, waiting for you to drop in on them again. The continuation is coming, when it comes. The trade press has reported a film and a follow-up project, with Bachelet attached. Specific plot details are, at the time of writing, not confirmed in a public way that would be safe for me to repeat. What is safe to say is that the world has not closed. The Wattersons are not gone. Elmore is not gone. The cat and the fish and the rabbit and the pink dad and the blue mum will be back in some form, with or without the same voices, with or without the same visual choices. Whatever the new work turns out to be, the old work will still be the old work. The character work will still be visible to anyone who chooses to look for it, and the looking is, in the end, the whole point. The cartoon was always a school in looking. If you are still with me, you are doing well. The lights are low, the bed is warm. The cartoon is somewhere in the back of your head, the way it has been for years if you grew up with it, or the way it is becoming if this is your first long sit with it. The cat is somewhere on the couch. The fish is somewhere on the couch. The rabbit is somewhere on the couch, doing her homework. The dad is somewhere on the couch. The mum is, you suspect, in the kitchen, holding everything together by force of will. Outside the house, the strange town is going about its business. The rock is at the cash register. The bus driver is on his route. The bear principal is missing the warmth of whoever is not in the room. The baboon teacher is, somewhere, sharpening her teeth. The four-eyed kid is in the void, doing what he does. The whole place is breathing. The whole place is somewhere down the road from you, and somewhere inside you, depending on the angle from which you choose to look at it. Sleep well. Take care of yourselves. Be patient with the people in your own house, especially the ones whose designs you have stopped looking at closely. Be patient with the ones who feel, sometimes, like they have been forgotten. Be patient with yourself, the way the show was patient with all of its small, strange, beloved characters, every week, for as long as the budget allowed. There is nothing in any of these children that is not also in you, somewhere. That, more than anything else, is the hidden genius. Good night, from Cortoon. We will be here again, with another long, quiet essay, next time you cannot sleep. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.